Chapter 55. Wang Jize smiled benevolently. It's a good thing that you know you're on the right path. You're cultivating the basic water attribute technique. There aren't many level 1 water attribute techniques that are practical. You're already at the late stage of Qi disciple, so it's not worth it to change your technique. If you can reach foundation establishment in the future, then change to a multi-attribute technique. If you want to cultivate a technique, it's better to cultivate our Wang family's water dragon technique. This technique has been modified by our ancestors so it can be used for both offense and defense. Although it's not very destructive, it's not afraid of any technique of the same level. If it's used in water, its power can be compared to a weaker level 2 low-grade technique. Qingli County's water net is crisscrossed. If you can't win, then run into the water. As for escape techniques, cultivate cloud escape. This escape technique was created by our ancestors by combining many escape techniques and is a water attribute escape technique. Compared to other water attribute escape techniques, its biggest advantage is that it can be used outside the water and its concealment is not bad. With these two techniques, as long as you don't meet any foundation establishment cultivators, you'll have no problem protecting yourself. Wang Daoyuan respectfully said, "Thank you for your guidance." He went straight to the second floor of the Hidden Scriptures Tower and easily found the 2 jade slips. After he entered the family, in order to quickly understand this world, he often came to the Hidden Scriptures Tower to read the family's books. Other than the 3rd floor where the techniques were stored, he knew where the techniques on the 1st and 2nd floors were stored. After he obtained the Water Dragon technique and Cloud Escape, he used his divine sense to examine them and memorized the 2 techniques. He then returned the jade slips to Wang Jize and left. These secret techniques of the family were definitely not allowed to be passed on to outsiders. Thus, if one wanted to cultivate, they could only memorize the techniques and then study them on their own. They were not allowed to take the jade slips away. After leaving the Hidden Scriptures Tower, Wang Daoyuan went to pay his respects to his 7 granduncles. After all, it was because of his 7 granduncles' deaths that he came to his senses. He went to pay his respects to express his gratitude. After that, he went to visit 7th uncle Wang Shouhong and took his 8th grade pills. He also told Wang Shouhong that he wanted to learn alchemy. Of course, Wang Shouhong didn't agree. However, he couldn't resist his coaxing and finally gave him an introductory book on alchemy and some common level 1 pill recipes. Wang Daoyuan left satisfied. Before he left, he gave 7th uncle a few dozen sets of spirit gathering pill ingredients as thanks. Anyway, he had a lot of these things. There were hundreds of them stored in the space. Moreover, with the spirit pearl space, he didn't have to worry about lacking these common spirit herbs. After leaving 7th uncle's place, he passed by the Jade Dragon Spring and took a look at how the 2 Qing River carps were doing. For years had passed, and the Qing River carps had reproduced another nest. 2 big fishes were swimming in the spring water with more than 10 small fry. The 2 big fish also seemed to have advanced to become first-stage middle-grade spiritual fish. The Jade Dragon Spring was filled with spirit energy, so it wasn't strange that they could advance. Wang Jize was the one who fed them. Although Wang Jize had never seen the Qing River carps with his own eyes when he was young, he had often come into contact with the elders who had raised the Qing River carps before. He had also learned some techniques to raise the Qing River carps. With him personally feeding the Qing River carps, there naturally wouldn't be a problem. After Wang Daoyuan informed the Great Elder that he was leaving the mountain, he took the family's spirit ship to Clear Glass Market at Sleeping Bow Crossing. Sleeping Bow Pond was the Wang family's transportation hub. Several streams that originated from the remnant veins of Mount Huiyan converged into Sleeping Bow Pond. The Wang family used these streams to transport the ores, stones, and spiritual wood produced from several mines and tree farms in Mount Huiyan's remnant veins back to Jade Spring Peak. After selection, the materials that Jade Spring Peak did not need were transported to Clear Glass Market for sale. The spirit ship that Wang Daoyuan took was filled with red copper Oregon. The ship's speed was relatively slow, and because it was a heavy ship, it wasn't cost-effective to use spirit stones or spirit energy to drive it. He wasn't in a hurry, so he simply followed the ship slowly and practiced the water dragon technique and cloud escape. Wang Daoyuan was very satisfied with his talent in magic cultivation. After practicing for 3 days, he successfully condensed a water dragon. However, it couldn't compare to Wang Shui's 5-zhang long water dragon. The water dragon that he condensed was only 2 feet long, and he was very unfamiliar with controlling it. It was far from Wang Shui's ability to control it as if it was his own arm, and the difference in power was like heaven and earth. With this little length, it was impossible to entangle the opponent. He could only control it and fight with the enemy. Cloud escape's difficulty was a bit lower. It was an improved version of the water escape technique. It didn't need to be in the water. As long as there was water attribute spirit energy, it could be used. Wang Daoyuan only needed a day's time to successfully cast it. When using it, he controlled the surrounding water spirit energy to condense a cloud of about 3 zhang in diameter. He could quickly move within the cloud of mist. Of course, it wouldn't work outside the range of the cloud of mist. If he used it in the water, the entire body of water could be considered a condensed cloud of mist. He could maintain a fast-moving state in the water, and his speed was even faster than in the cloud of mist. If he wanted to escape outside the water, he would need to continuously condense the cloud of mist, which was time-consuming and laborious. Cloud escape was more suitable for sneak attacks when fighting on land. Its use for escaping was just a side effect. Cloud escape was used outside the water. Among the 5 elements escape techniques, its speed was slightly inferior to the fire escape technique, but its concealment was far better. If it was used in the water, its speed was faster than the fire escape technique. This escape technique should be a simplified version of a high-level escape technique. It couldn't be compared to an ordinary level 1 escape technique. Wang Daoyuan traveled on the ship for more than half a month and finally arrived at Clear Glass City. After more than a month, the business of the grocery store and restaurant became even worse. However, the business of the Pill Seal Pavilion was exceptionally hot. Of course, this was also reasonable. In the war, both the loose cultivators and the disciples of the clans suffered heavy losses. Whether there would be another war in the future, most people weren't sure. At this time, it was obviously more important to rush to buy medicinal pills and spirit talismans to protect one's life. Spirit stones were used to buy medicinal pills and spirit talismans. Who would have the leisure to eat in the restaurant? As for the business of the grocery store, it was because the Netherworld sect wanted to auction the foundation building pill. Every clan's eyes were red. They were all eyeing the foundation building pill. They sold everything in exchange for spirit stones. Who would still take out money to buy things like ores and spirit wood? Wang Daoyuan walked into the Pill Seal Pavilion and handed over 200 different kinds of spirit talismans and 500 soul-gathering pills in exchange for some spirit stones. These spirit pills and spirit talismans made 10th granduncle Wang Zhihe extremely happy. The business was booming. The stock in the store was almost sold out. If he couldn't supply the goods, his reputation would be ruined. Wang Zhihe looked at the spirit stones flowing in like water and was overjoyed. Looking at the decreasing stock of spirit talismans, he was so worried that his hair turned white. Wang Daoyuan's 200 spirit talismans and 500 medicinal pills really solved the urgent situation. Wang Zhihe gave him an average purchase price of 6 spirit stones per talisman. It was 2 spirit stones higher than the usual purchase price. The soul-gathering pills were directly purchased at 2 spirit stones per talisman. It was the same as the original price. It could be seen how fast the price of spirit talismans and medicinal pills had risen. Wang Daoyuan originally planned to take advantage of the opportunity when every clan was selling everything in exchange for spirit stones. However, he was directly caught by 10th granduncle. If he didn't hand over 20 kinds of first-level high-grade spirit talismans a day, he wouldn't be able to leave. In this way, the craze for spirit talismans and spirit pills subsided after 10 days. In these 10 days, the turnover of the Dan Charm Pavilion was more than all the previous years. Wang Zhihe was so happy that he couldn't help but smile. He was worried that he wouldn't have enough spirit stones to get the foundation establishment pills in the auction a year later. After this wave of craze, he realized that his stock of spirit stones had become living money. When the foundation establishment pills were about to be auctioned, living money was extremely important. There were more than 20,000 spirit stones in the store. However, after this wave of craze, there wouldn't be much business in the Dan Charm Pavilion for a year. Wang Daoyuan had more than 6,000 spirit stones in his hands. Of course, this was mainly due to the space in the spirit pearl. The cost of his spirit pills and spirit talismans was extremely low. It could be regarded as a business without any capital. If an ordinary person sold these spirit pills and spirit talismans, they wouldn't earn much after deducting the price of the raw materials. In these 10 days, apart from increasing his cultivation, he spent most of his time refining spirit talismans. In addition to completing tasks, he also replenished his spirit talismans. The rest of his time was also used to cultivate the water dragon technique and the smoke escape. After all, these were his special skills in the future. He couldn't slack off. Therefore, after coming to the clear glass market for more than 10 days, he still hadn't strolled around the market. However, his efforts weren't in vain. The water dragon technique he used was already more than 3 feet long. The smoke escape could also condense a cloud of 50 to 60 feet in diameter. The rest was just a matter of time. Chapter 56. After the rush to buy pills and talismans passed, Wang Daoyuan finally had time to stroll around the market. At this time, the trend of selling goods had just begun. In order to be able to bid for foundation establishment pills, each family took out things that they were usually reluctant to sell. Loose cultivators and family disciples also began to set up street stalls in the market. Especially those families that had lost foundation establishment cultivators, they couldn't wait to dig out their family's spirit veins and sell them. Of course, the scene was a bit exaggerated, but it was far from the time to take out the things at the bottom of the chest. After all, the Netherworld sect had said that 10 foundation establishment pills would be auctioned in a year. Now, less than a month had passed, and each force had only taken out some unimportant things. It was far from the point of selling everything. Even so, the things being sold in the market now were not comparable to those in normal times. For example, first-rank spirit medicine and first-rank spirit medicine seeds, which were absolutely impossible to see in normal times, could be seen everywhere now. Wang Daoyuan walked out of the Pill Seal Pavilion and walked along the main road in front of the door. After walking a few steps, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. All kinds of first-rank spirit medicine, magic tools, talismans, and so on were placed on the street stalls. If it weren't for these people's different clothes, he would have suspected that he had transmigrated back to the market of his previous life. Where was the ostentation of cultivators? Wang Daoyuan came back to his senses after a long time. His spiritual sense searched for the spiritual things he needed in the stalls. Soon, he found 2 saplings in one of the stalls. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He had long wanted to plant some spirit fruits and spirit wood in the space. Unfortunately, these things could not be bought at ordinary times. The stall was set up by a male cultivator who looked to be in his early 30s. He wore a dark robe embroidered with a pine tree. He was very familiar with this symbol. It was the symbol of Ash Cloud Peak's Meng family. Ash Cloud Peak was only about 2,000 miles away from Jade Spring Peak. There was an ancient pine tree on the peak. The pine tree covered the sky and covered the entire peak. From a distance, it looked like a dark cloud shrouding the peak, hence the name Ash Cloud Peak. The Meng family was also an old family, but its history was relatively short. It only had a little more than 400 years and had not produced any powerful figures. When the three major sects rebelled, the Meng family was weak and didn't participate too much. After the incident, they didn't suffer too much of a blow. After the war, their development was much stronger than the Wang family. There were two foundation establishment cultivators in the Meng family who had participated in the war between the three sections. The patriarch of the Meng family had died in battle, leaving behind a grand elder who was nearly 200 years old. The lifespan of a foundation establishment cultivator was only 240 years old, but most cultivators couldn't live past the upper limit of their lifespan. This grand elder could only hold on for another 40 years at most, and this was under the condition that he did not engage in a fierce battle with others. Within these 40 years, if no one succeeded in reaching the foundation establishment stage, then the Meng clan would very likely collapse. The best outcome would be to become a vassal of other clans. The Netherworld sect would auction the foundation building pill once every 60 years to win over the subordinate forces. The next auction would be held in 30 years. If the Meng family missed this opportunity, it was hard to say whether the family could survive until the next one. Therefore, it could be said that the Meng family was determined to win this auction. The news of the foundation building pill being auctioned had just spread, and the Meng family had already begun to sell spirit wood saplings. These were all good things that could become a family business. Wang Daoyuan walked to the front of the stall, and the cultivator who set up the stall greeted him warmly. "This is Daoyu, feel free to choose whatever you like." Wang Daoyuan was wearing the standard Daoist robe of the Wang family. After all, his ancestors had once been rich, and the fish-dragon pattern had a very resounding reputation in Qingli County. Moreover, the Meng family and the Wang family were neighbors, and the two families had a very good relationship. He pointed at the saplings and said, "Greetings to Daoyu, Meng Daoyu. To tell you the truth, I have taken a fancy to these two saplings. If I'm not mistaken, these two saplings should be Golden Silk Spirit Jujube and Fiery Sun Wood, right?" Golden Silk Spirit Jujube was a first-tier high-grade spirit fruit. It had the effect of strengthening meridians and dantian. Among first-tier spirit fruits, it could be ranked in the top, and was very rare on the market. The value of Fiery Sun Wood was relatively lower. This wood was not useful, and the tree trunk was hard and brittle. Its strength was not much stronger than ordinary trees, and it could not be used to refine spirit weapons, nor could it be used as a building material. Its only value was to burn charcoal. The Fiery Sun Wood's firepower was mild and stable, and was very suitable for alchemy and weapon refinement novices. Its weakness was also very obvious: the firepower was not strong enough. It was barely enough to refine first-tier high-grade magic weapons, but it was enough to refine first-tier spirit pills. The biggest advantage of Fiery Sun Wood was that it grew very quickly. Once the seed was planted, under the condition that there was sufficient spirit qi, it would be able to bloom and bear seeds that year, and in 5 years, it could be used to burn charcoal. To Wang Daoyuan, a novice who was just about to learn alchemy, the Fiery Sun Wood was very suitable. Furthermore, the Fiery Sun Wood grew very quickly, and with the help of the Spirit Pearl Space, it could be mass-produced. Hearing that Wang Daoyuan was interested in buying the two saplings, the Meng family cultivator's face lit up, and said, "Daoyu has good eyesight, these two spirit trees are indeed Golden Silk Spirit Jujube and Fiery Sun Wood. Since Daoyu recognizes them, I won't introduce them any further. The Golden Silk Spirit Jujube sapling is 100 spirit stones, and the Fiery Sun Wood sapling is 30 spirit stones. What do you think, Daoyu?" Wang Daoyuan chuckled, and said, "Daoyu, you're not doing this kind of business. Let's not talk about the Fiery Sun Wood, it's not rare on the market, and it costs 30 spirit stones. You're a bit greedy. As for the golden silk spirit jujube, it can be considered a rare item. Logically speaking, 100 spirit stones is a bargain for me. But this sapling's leaves are yellow, the plant is short, and its head is drooping. It's obviously a product that has been eliminated. Even if I get my hands on it, I might not be able to grow it. I'm afraid the price. Sigh, the Meng family cultivator heaved a long sigh. Dao Yu has good eyesight. However, this golden silk spirit jujube really isn't a sapling that has been eliminated. I got it by chance when I was traveling outside. It's just that the sapling has just been transplanted and hasn't been rerooted. If it weren't for the family's current situation, I wouldn't be willing to dig it out and sell it. It's only after its roots have been moved twice in a row that it looks sickly. However, I guarantee with my integrity that there's no problem with this sapling itself. It'll definitely be able to grow. Wang Daoyuan also sighed, and said, Dao Yu, you don't have to be like this. In this war, my Wang family also suffered disastrous losses. I also feel the same about what happened to the Meng family. Our two families can be considered old friends. Forget it, let's just follow Dao Yu's price. The Meng family cultivator bowed and cupped his fists, saying, many thanks to Dao Yu. Wang Daoyuan handed over the spirit stones and put the two saplings into his storage pouch. He then left the stall and began to search for other valuable spiritual objects. The cultivator surnamed Meng put the spirit stones into his storage pouch and sighed ruefully, this Dao Yu is still an honest and considerate person. Wang Daoyuan didn't do this to help the enemy, but to increase the number of competitors for his family's foundation building pill. The Wang family originally had more than 20,000 spirit stones, and they had more than 20,000 spirit stones in the clear glass market. Adding one more, they had more than 40,000 spirit stones. Wang Daoyuan planned to take out more than half of his spirit stones and exchange them for family contribution points. Even if there were many families competing for the foundation building pill this time and there might be a serious premium, it was impossible for each foundation building pill to exceed 100,000 spirit stones. It wasn't that there hadn't been fierce competition for foundation building pills in the past, and there had been a few times when the situation was more severe than this time. However, the highest record in history was only 100,000 spirit stones for one pill. Although there was a discount for foundation building pills in this auction, after all, no one had prepared in advance. They didn't have many spirit stones saved, and the price wouldn't be too outrageous. The Wang family still had a good chance of getting one foundation building pill. As for getting two foundation building pills, that would be courting death. Without a Zifu disciple overseeing the family, who would dare to do something that would make everyone jealous? Moreover, there wasn't a half-price discount for the second foundation building pill. The Wang family didn't have the ability to take out 100,000 spirit stones after getting one foundation building pill. Since they had a good chance of getting one foundation building pill and couldn't get two, it was better to help a friendly force get one than to let an enemy force get it. Wang Daochang joked, isn't this all because of seventh brother's ability? You must have earned a lot of spirit stones recently, right? Why don't we take care of third brother's business? I did earn quite a lot of spirit stones, but the talismans I accumulated during my 4 years of confinement and the spirit pills I asked 7th uncle to refine were all robbed by 10th great uncle. I came out to see if there's anything I need. After I'm done, I'll keep some spirit stones as backup and hand over the rest to the clan in exchange for contribution points. Wouldn't it be unnecessary for me to take care of your business? Wang Daoyuan replied. Then, he took out another 100 talismans and gave them to third brother, saying, everyone is selling spirit herbs, ores, and the like. It's not easy for you to sell these. Sell these talismans at a fair price and take the money you earn back to the clan to exchange for contribution points. When Wang Daoyuan took out the talismans, he revealed the jade pendant given by the Yang clan ancestor. The Yang clan cultivator asked, Daoyu, this jade pendant seems to belong to the Yang clan? Wang Daoyuan took out the jade pendant and answered, this indeed belongs to the Yang clan. 4 years ago, I caught a clear river carp and the Yang clan ancestor came to help me deal with it. After learning that my mother was from the Yang clan, he gave this jade pendant to me as a greeting gift. The Yang clan cultivator was interested and asked, according to the secular world's hierarchy, I'm the 8th generation of the ancestor's descendant. Which generation is Daoyu from? That's a coincidence. Wang Daoyuan smiled, my mother is the 7th generation of the ancestor's descendant. I happen to be the 8th generation, so I should call Daoyu cousin. The Yang clan cultivator was also very happy and said, that's a coincidence. My name is Yang Yulin, what's cousin's name? Wang Daoyuan replied, my name is Wang Daoyuan. Since I've met cousin, I'll take care of cousin's business. The Yang clan ancestor was good at refining, so Yang Yulin's stall only had low-level magic tools. Wang Daoyuan picked 2 spirit beast bags and more than 10 storage bags. When he fights in the future, he might need the help of the soul-chasing bees, so the spirit beast bag on his waist could be explained. As for the storage bag, it was to store mature spirit grains and spirit herbs in the space of the spirit bead. These family geniuses didn't know how to do business. He helped to sell for a while, and soon the 2 stalls sold a few things. After that, Wang Daoyuan continued to look at other stalls to see if there were any good things. There was nothing to see at the family cultivator's stalls. Although everyone was in urgent need of spirit stones, they weren't in such a hurry to sell their treasures now. On the contrary, the rogue cultivator's stalls had a lot of good things. Usually, Clear Glass City didn't allow street stalls, and it wasn't easy for rogue cultivators to sell their things. If they sold to shops, the price would be lowered, and they might even be blackmailed. Truly capable rogue cultivators still had good things on them. Moreover, they didn't dare to sell until the end. At that time, all the major families would be selling their treasures, and rogue cultivators wouldn't be able to compete. Moreover, they weren't sure how long the non-prohibition of street stalls would last, so the things they took out were more precious. Of course, they were only rank 1 spirit items. There were very few rank 2 spirit items, and even if they were to sell them until the end, they could still sell them. There was no need to take them out early. Wang Daoyuan noticed a rogue cultivator's stall. The rogue cultivator looked like a middle-aged man, and his cultivation was also at the 7th level of qi refinement. His face was greasy, and he looked more like a shop usher. His stall was mostly filled with spirit herbs and seeds. Although they were all rank 1, there was a complete variety. There were a few types that the family didn't have, and there were even a few lotus seeds. Wang Daoyuan dug 2 acres of fish pond in the space of the spirit pearl and wanted to plant some water spiritual plants. Firstly, it was to enrich the resources in his hands, and secondly, it was to provide some other food for the fish. Although he had put a lot of algae in the fish pond, they weren't ranked. It wasn't easy to encounter a ranked water spiritual plant, so he naturally couldn't miss it. After all, 2 acres of spiritual fields were only used to raise fish, and his heart really ached. However, looking at this cultivator's shrewdness, it wouldn't be easy to take him down. It didn't matter to the Yang and Meng families to do business. The 3 families were connected, and if the 2 families grew stronger, it would also be beneficial to the Wang family. It was impossible to take advantage of rogue cultivators. Suppressing rogue cultivators was the same goal of sects and families. If rogue cultivators succeeded in building their foundation, there was a high chance that they would establish a family. Then, they would have to snatch spirit mountains, mineral veins, and shops. A newly established family would be a competitor to all the old families. There were only so many resources, and the more forces there were, the less each force would get. No force wanted a new force to rise. Wang Daoyuan walked forward. The stall owner saw that he was young and a family cultivator. Generally speaking, cultivators of this age were inexperienced and knew nothing about the scams of the Jianghu. The stall owner thought that a fat sheep had come, and he was instantly full of smiles, his eyes shining. Chapter 58. The stall owner did not wait for Wang Daoyuan to speak and rushed to introduce first. This Dao Yu looks like a descendant of an aristocratic family. Although my cultivation is low, I still have some good stuff. He picked up a few seeds and said, "These are all Tier 2 spirit herb seeds. In the entire market square, you won't be able to find a second shop selling Tier 2 spirit herb seeds. Dao Yu, if you pass this village, you won't have this shop anymore." Hearing him brag like this, Wang Daoyuan turned his head and left. This was also a common method of buying things, loosening the reins only to grasp them better. One of the 36 stratagems in his previous life, a common stratagem in the market. Sure enough, once he left, the stall owner panicked and hurriedly pulled him, saying, "Dao Yu, don't go. Although Tier 2 spirit herb seeds are very precious, the price can be discussed." Wang Daoyuan sneered and said, "I'll give you one last chance. What Tier 2 spirit herb seeds are these?" The stall owner smiled awkwardly. "I misjudged. I didn't expect Dao Yu to know the business. Forget it, I won't hide it from Dao Yu. These are all Tier 1 spirit herb seeds. However, I really do have some good stuff." He picked up those lotus seeds and said, "This is what I picked in the lotus pond when I explored the ancient cultivator's abode. I also know a little about spirit herbs. This thing might be the inky jade serene lotus. Dao Yu also knows the business. What this inky jade serene lotus is, I don't think I need to say more, right? Fixed price, 100 spirit stones for one. What do you think, Dao Yu?" Wang Daoyuan carefully observed the lotus seeds and said with a smile, "Dao Yu isn't honest. I've naturally heard of the inky jade serene lotus. Planted in a place with dense yin qi, it can bloom in 10 years. When it blossoms, it's a Tier 2 middle-grade spirit herb. If carefully cultivated, it can grow into a Tier 2 high-grade spirit herb. The lotus roots and lotus seeds can even heal soul injuries. However, the lotus seed must have a pure yin qi. I don't feel any pure yin qi from this lotus seed." The stall owner quibbled, "The appearance of this lotus seed is exactly the same as the inky jade lotus. As for the lack of pure yin qi, it's probably because it stayed in the ancient cultivator's cave for too long. In order to preserve its vitality, the yin qi was restrained. Dao Yu can use your spiritual sense to examine it. This lotus seed is still alive." Wang Daoyuan didn't believe his nonsense. "As far as I know, the black water lotus's lotus seed and the black jade lotus's appearance are exactly the same. The only difference is this pure yin qi. Dao Yu's lotus seed is more likely to be the black water lotus. Even if it was the inky jade serene lotus seed, without the pure yin qi, the possibility of it germinating was next to nothing. Furthermore, the inky jade serene lotus is only suitable to grow in places with dense yin qi. Where am I going to find this kind of place? I won't talk nonsense. 10 spirit stones for one lotus seed. This price is especially expensive to buy the black water lotus seed. Just take it as a gamble. If it's the inky jade serene lotus and it can germinate, then I'll make a profit. If it's only the black water lotus, or it can't germinate, I can afford to lose dozens of spirit stones. However, Dao Yu have to spare me a few rank 1 elixir seeds. If Dao Yu is willing, then let's do it. If not, then I'll leave. Dao Yu also don't pester me." The stall owner pondered for a long time and said, "I'll treat it as making friends with Dao Yu and sell him. However, Dao Yu can't be too ruthless when you choose to spare me. My small business can't afford to be tossed around." Wang Daoyuan picked 4 rank 1 elixir seeds that were not in the space of the spiritual pearl. He took 2 or 3 of each and gave 50 spirit stones to the stall owner. He took 5 lotus seeds and left. The reason why he bought these 5 lotus seeds was that these 5 lotus seeds were really old. Therefore, these 5 lotus seeds could really be the inky jade serene lotus. After a long time, the yin qi would be restrained. Even if it wasn't, it didn't matter. 50 spirit stones for Wang Daoyuan was just a drop in the ocean. Moreover, even if it was the black water lotus, he had achieved his goal. He originally wanted to buy a kind of water spirit plant. With the space of the spiritual pearl, he could quickly make up for the loss. Wang Daoyuan continued to go deeper into the old square. The old square had been established for a long time and had a large territory. Moreover, all the forces had shops, so it was much more lively than the left and right squares. After all the shops in the left and right squares belonged to the Netherworld sect. The people who did the business and the management were all from the Netherworld sect. It was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be a situation where the shops bullied the customers. For example, at this time, there were many stalls on both sides of the old square. However, the left and right squares were deserted. The Netherworld sect had also thought of selling some of the shops in the left and right squares. However, except for the families of some elders of the Netherworld sect who bought them, the other forces didn't buy them. It was a waste of spirit stones to open a shop in a deserted place. Wang Daoyuan strolled around the street. He had already bought all the spiritual items he urgently needed. Shopping was purely for fun. The stalls on both sides of the street only sold a few types of spiritual items. There was really not much to see. Just as he was about to go back, he saw a group of people in front of him surrounding a stall. Driven by his nature of being a spectator, Wang Daoyuan squeezed through. He saw that the stall owner was an old cultivator. He had a weather-beaten face and gave people a very honest and reliable feeling. Of course, it was extremely rare to judge people by their appearance in the cultivation world. This was because most of these people were already dead. Those who were not dead were too strong and had not been killed for the time being. The things on the stall were quite novel. Other stalls had spiritual herbs, spiritual materials, low-level magic artifacts, spirit pills, and so on. However, this stall actually only had broken magic artifacts. Common magic artifacts such as long swords, long sabers, armor, and spiritual boots, as well as magic artifacts with special functions such as pearls, jade pendants, and bracelets, were all in good condition. Some of the magic artifacts exuded an ancient aura. They should be left behind from ancient times. Most of the magic artifacts were not very old. According to the stall owner, all the broken magic artifacts still had some power and were not completely scrapped. However, Wang Daoyuan was not interested in these things. The people who were interested were either rogue cultivators who did not have many spirit stones or refiners who bought some broken magic artifacts to study their refining methods. However, there were many onlookers, but very few people were making a move. Just as Wang Daoyuan was about to leave, he caught a glimpse of a half-foot-long and 1-inch-tall boat from the corner of his eye. The whole boat was dark and seemed to be made of some kind of wood. The mast, the rudder, and even the tables and chairs in the cabin were all available. The only flaw was that there were a few holes in the side of the boat. 2 incomplete words could be faintly seen on it, Zhu Lang. Wang Daoyuan picked up the boat and asked the stall owner, "May I ask what this is, Daoyu?" The stall owner was naturally very happy to see that someone was interested in his things. He explained, "This is a flying boat. When it is in good condition, it is a second-rank high-grade magic artifact. Injecting spiritual power can turn it into a 5-foot-long and 1-foot-wide flying boat. This boat can fly on the water surface and is not afraid of hidden reefs and dangerous shoals. Its speed is much faster than ordinary cargo spirit ships. Of course, the consumption of spirit stones is also much higher." Hearing that it was a flying boat and a second-rank high-grade magic artifact, the onlookers were immediately interested. A flying boat had never appeared in Qingli City. Seeing that everyone was interested, the stall owner took the flying boat and walked to the center of the street. He injected spiritual power into the flying boat. The originally toy-like boat instantly turned into a 5-foot-long and 1-foot-wide boat. The stall owner let go of the flying boat. This flying boat could actually float more than 1 foot above the ground. Chapter 59. A busybody in the crowd jumped onto the flying boat, wanting to test the feeling of flying. He walked into the cabin and used his spirit energy to activate the flying boat. The flying boat moved forward slowly, its speed not even as fast as a mortal walking. Another burly man said, "You trash, you can't even activate a Dharma artifact." The burly man jumped onto the flying boat and was about to control it when it fell to the ground because it could not withstand the weight of 2 people. The onlookers burst into laughter. The main purpose of such a large flying boat was to transport large amounts of goods or as a passenger ship. However, the flying boat could not withstand the weight of 2 people on it. Furthermore, a late-stage Qi refinement cultivator could only fly at the speed of a turtle. What was the use of this broken thing? Wang Daoyuan also said in a mocking tone, "That's it." Someone in the crowd jeered and shouted, "Disperse, disperse." Many onlookers turned around and left. The stall owner was anxious and said, "Although this flying boat can't be used, only the floating array formation and the propulsion array formation are broken. Everything else is fine. It can still be used after being repaired by a weapon refinement master." A weapon refinement master said disdainfully, "Is there anything else on the flying boat other than these 2 array formations? With these 2 array formations, even a door panel can be used as a flying boat. If the array formations are destroyed, what's the use of the other things?" A flying boat is not an ordinary Dharma artifact. It involves the 2 major systems of weapon refinement and array formations. At least a superior grade Tier 2 weapon refinement master and a superior grade Tier 2 array formation master are needed to repair this flying boat. Furthermore, they have to have experience in refining large Dharma artifacts. If they don't have experience in refining large Dharma artifacts, they will need a Tier 3 array formation master and weapon refinement master. This price is enough to buy a new one. If it's a weapon refinement master or array formation master above Tier 2, it might be meaningful to buy it to study the refinement techniques or array formations and learn how to refine a flying boat. Who else would buy this thing? With that said, everyone dispersed. Wang Daoyuan also planned to leave. He thought that if it was easy to repair, he could buy it back and get someone to repair it so that he could implement the 12th uncle's Linhai state strategy. Unfortunately, the difficulty of repairing it was too high and the price was too high. Wang Daoyuan was the last to leave. The stall owner pulled him back and said, "This Dao Yu should be interested in this wave-chasing flying boat, right? I can sell it to Dao Yu at a cheaper price." Wang Daoyuan's interest was piqued. If he could buy it back at a low price, even if it couldn't be repaired, he could dismantle it and sell it for materials. At the very least, it could be used as a reference to avoid being cheated when buying a flying boat in the future. Thus, he asked, "How much is Dao Yu willing to pay?" When the stall owner saw that he was interested in buying it, he was overjoyed and hurriedly said, "It's only 2,000 spirit stones. This is a second-stage high-grade magic tool made by a famous master, so the price is definitely not high. If it's in perfect condition, you won't even be qualified to look at it if you don't have 10,000 spirit stones." Wang Daoyuan sneered, "Dao Yu, do you think I'm a sucker? This flying boat is already at this stage, so what if it's made by a famous master? My family doesn't have any artifact refiners or array masters. I bought it, but I only dismantled it to sell the materials. 2,000 spirit stones to buy a pile of broken materials, do you think I'm a fool? I'll pay 100 spirit stones, whether you want to sell it or not." The stall owner was a little angry, and said, "Dao Yu's bargaining is too good. Other people cut it at the waist at most, but you cut it at the heel. This is a second-stage high-grade magic tool, and it's so big, it can be sold for thousands of spirit stones. Do you think you can fool me just because I don't know how to forge magic tools? Wang Daoyuan sneered and said, for this kind of large-scale magic tool, only the core parts are made of good materials, and the other parts are made of ordinary materials. For large-scale flying boat-type magic tools, only the keel, bow, and the core parts inscribed with array patterns are made of second-stage high-grade spiritual materials. The rest are first-stage spiritual materials, and they're all sold at the price of second-stage spiritual materials. Daoyu's sincerity is not enough. His trick was seen through, but the stall owner did not feel embarrassed, and said with a smile, Daoyu's really smart, but even if it's mainly first-stage spiritual materials, there are still many second-stage spiritual materials. 100 spirit stones is really too low, 500 spirit stones, I can't go any lower. Wang Daoyuan stretched out 2 fingers and said, 200 at most, not a single spirit stone more. The stall owner agreed happily and said, okay, we'll do as Daoyu says. Wang Daoyuan secretly said, too careless. The stall owner's face was full of joy, and Wang Daoyuan knew that this person definitely made a lot of money. He estimated that if he insisted on 100 spirit stones, he could get it. It seemed that his bargaining level was still too low. The price was already set, and it was not appropriate to go back on his word, so he would just treat it as spending money to buy a lesson. After paying the spirit stones, he took the broken wave-chasing boat and returned to the Pill Seal Pavilion's cave. After strolling for a long time, there was nothing that was of great use to him, plus he was scammed, so he was not in the mood to continue strolling. Returning to the Pill Seal Pavilion, he found 12th uncle and 9th uncle, showing them the wave-chasing boat and explaining the conditions that the artifact refiner said to repair the flying boat. Different from Wang Daoyuan, who felt that he was scammed, the two of them were very excited. Flying boats were extremely rare, at least in Clear Glass City, there had never been a complete flying boat. Although this thing was basically useless, one could still have some understanding of the flying boat structure, functions, and so on. What's more, this flying boat was not impossible to repair, it was just a bit more difficult. Wang Shui enlarged the flying boat, jumped on the flying boat, and injected spirit power to drive it for a while. After that, Wang Zhida also went up to experience it. Wang Shui said, although this flying boat's functions are close to being completely useless, since it can still float in the air and slowly move forward after injecting spirit power, it shows that a large part of the internal array can still be operated, at least there's no need to completely demolish it. Although our Wang family does not have this ability, the Yang family's ancestor is a Tier 3 artifact refiner, there's still hope to invite him to repair it. In the future, when the family is more affluent, we can also invite a Tier 3 array master, and then it can be repaired. Although the price may be high, a complete flying boat cannot be bought at all. The 3 major sects have flying warships, but they will not sell them. Flying warships pursue speed, attack, and defense, and do not care about spirit stones consumption, not suitable for passenger and cargo transport. Wang Zhida was also very satisfied. Daoyuan has done a great service this time. If this flying boat can be repaired in the future, even if it does not connect to the Linhai State's trade route, our Wang family can have another passenger business. A complete flying boat is much faster than a spirit boat. With a flying boat, our Wang family can expand our business to the several markets jointly managed by the 3 major sects by the 10,000 Rivers River. That is far more than Clear Glass City, which has been established for thousands of years. Unfortunately, it is too far from here, and our Wang family does not have anything that can be taken out. To do business there and back, the manpower and material resources consumed on the way are more valuable than the goods. Even if this flying boat cannot be repaired, when the family grows stronger in the future, if there are juniors who walk the path of artifact refinement or array formation, this flying boat will be a living teaching material. Although the flying boat is broken, it is still a good thing that can increase the family's foundation. Wang Daoyuan was a little embarrassed. I bought this thing at first, thinking that if it cannot be repaired, then I will dismantle it and sell it for materials. A Tier 2 high-grade artifact can be sold for 1,000 spirit stones after dismantling it. Wang Zhida glanced at him and said, "What a prodigal, only looking at the present and not the long-term benefits. Not to mention that this flying boat can be repaired, even if it is completely scrapped, you can't dismantle it. You really have not improved. Forget it, you have done a great service this time, I will not reprimand you. Hand over the flying boat to the family, and the family will not let you suffer a loss, and will give you 1,000 contribution points." Chapter 60. Wang Daoyuan took out 5,000 spirit stones and said, "Ninth uncle, the family wants to bid for the foundation establishment pill, so we need spirit stones. I have plenty of cultivation resources, so I don't have much use for these spirit stones, so I took them out to exchange for contribution points. If I can successfully obtain a foundation establishment pill, then the 12th uncle can successfully enter the foundation establishment realm. Only then will the family have hope of revitalizing." Wang Zhida patted Wang Daoyuan's shoulder and said, "Good child, you are the one who needs cultivation resources the most. I didn't expect that you would be able to make such a big contribution to the family." Wang Shui also became serious. "Daoyuan, since you are able to put in so much effort for me, I won't say any useless words. If there is anything in the future, I will cover you." Wang Daoyuan joked, "Uncle, did you forget how you betrayed me 4 years ago?" Wang Shui flew into a rage out of humiliation and wanted to grab Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan wanted to test his mastery of the 2 magic techniques, and the 12th uncle was the best opponent to compare notes with. Seeing Wang Shui grab him, he activated the mist escape and instantly escaped several feet away. This time, Wang Shui and Wang Zhida were a little surprised. They naturally knew that Wang Daoyuan didn't know the mist escape before, but in such a short time, he was already so proficient. Wang Shui wanted to test Wang Daoyuan's depth, but a 5-feet-long water dragon flew out and pounced on Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan continuously used the mist escape, dodging the water dragon's attack 5 or 6 times. The entire backyard of the Pill Seal Pavilion was filled with mist that didn't dissipate in time. This actually gave Wang Daoyuan an advantage, allowing him to escape even further. The water dragon pounced again, but Wang Daoyuan once again escaped several feet away. He condensed a ball of blue spirit energy, which turned into a 3-feet-long water dragon and flew towards Wang Shui's water dragon. The difference in strength was too great. Wang Daoyuan naturally wouldn't fight it head-on. Instead, he controlled the smaller water dragons to make strategic detours. He would catch the bigger water dragons off guard or bite them. Unfortunately, Wang Daoyuan's ability to control spirit energy was far inferior to Wang Shui's. He failed to gain the upper hand even after a few sneak attacks. Soon, the small water dragon was entangled by the big water dragon and turned into a ball of water spiritual energy. The water dragon attacked Wang Daoyuan a few more times, but he easily dodged it with the cloud escape. Wang Shui retracted the water dragons and said in shock, "Brat, you didn't know how to use cloud mist escape and water dragon arts when you joined the battle. How are you so proficient in them now?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "It took me 3 days to condense the water dragon and 1 day to learn the smoke escape. It took me more than 20 days to reach my current level." In the end, the water dragon didn't do much in the hands of the 12th uncle. Wang Zhida praised, "You are still not satisfied with this. Ever since our Wang family's old ancestor, only Shui has learned faster than you. Shui's water spiritual roots are much stronger than yours. Water spiritual roots are of great help to the cultivation of water attribute techniques. Furthermore, when Shui was cultivating the water dragon arts, he had the clan leader to guide him personally. You didn't have anyone to guide you. With just 2 inches of water spiritual roots, your cultivation speed is comparable to Shui's. If you had a strong water spiritual root like Shui, you wouldn't even need a day to cultivate the water dragon arts. Your talent in cultivating techniques is one of the best in the entire Qingli County. Wang Shui said, Dao Yuan, if you can build your foundation in the future, you must switch to cultivating techniques with multiple attributes. With your talent in cultivating techniques and the fact that you have 5 spiritual roots. If you can obtain all 5 attribute techniques, then you will be able to learn all the common techniques in the cultivation world. When you fight, you will definitely be invincible in the same realm. The cultivation world's techniques have a total of 9 common attributes. The 5 elements plus ice, wind, lightning and no attribute. No attribute refers to the balance of the 5 elements' spiritual energy. No attribute techniques can be cultivated by any cultivator of any attribute. It's just that the power isn't very strong. However, if a cultivator with all 5 attributes uses it, the power cannot be underestimated. Ice, wind and lightning are all formed by the fusion of multiple attributes. The ice attribute is mainly water and is supplemented by metal. The wind attribute is mainly wood and is supplemented by water. The lightning attribute is mainly fire and is supplemented by wood. Other than the 9 common attributes, there are also extremely rare attributes like yin and yang. Wang Daoyuan has 5 spiritual roots. If he can obtain all 5 attribute techniques, then he will be able to use all 9 attribute techniques. However, he has never thought about the path he will take after building his foundation. After all, building his foundation is too difficult for him. Furthermore, all 5 attribute techniques are extremely rare. The only one that can be seen on the market is the 5 element arts. It can only be cultivated to the peak of Qi disciple and the cultivation speed is extremely slow. Basically, no one is willing to cultivate it. If he can successfully build his foundation, then he will indeed have to work hard to find a brilliant 5 attribute technique. Wang Daoyuan pondered for a long time and said, if I'm lucky enough to build my foundation in the future, then I will indeed have to find all 5 attribute techniques. At the very least, I won't be restricted in refining talismans in the future. Speaking of talismans, Wang Zhida's interest was piqued. He asked, Daoyuan, what is your success rate in refining high-grade level 1 talismans now? Wang Daoyuan replied without hesitation, I was forced by 10th great-uncle to hand over 20 talismans every day for more than 10 days. My talisman crafting skills have improved and my success rate has already reached 60%. Wang Zhida heaved a long sigh and patted Wang Daoyuan's shoulder, the younger generation will surpass us in time. When I was your age, my success rate in refining low-grade level 1 talismans was less than 60%. You are much better than my old bones. With your Qi disciple level 7 cultivation, your success rate in refining high-grade level 1 talismans is 60%. It seems that your control of spiritual energy is not weak. In a few years, you should be able to refine low-grade level 2 talismans. According to the clan's rules, anyone who can reach the 2nd level in any one of the 100 arts of cultivation can become a clan elder. An elder under the age of 30 has really never appeared in our Wang clan. There are more than 20 clan disciples who have learned talisman crafting from me. Only 5 of them were able to enter the sect. Only 2 of them were able to become middle grade level 1 talisman masters. One is you and the other is your 5th uncle Shui. Your 5th uncle's talent is better than mine and he is also my biological son. I have always nurtured him as my successor. With Shui, the clan's talisman crafting skills can be passed down and I can close my eyes in peace. I didn't expect that you would appear in the Dao generation. Among the 100 arts of cultivation, the path of talisman crafting has the highest requirement for spiritual sense. If you can't build your foundation, you can only become a middle grade level 2 talisman master at most after exhausting your entire life's effort. This is the limit of a Qi disciple cultivator. With your talent, it won't be difficult for you to pass down the clan's talisman crafting skills. I hope you can make a breakthrough and become a third-level talisman master. There is no hope for me in this life. If I can nurture a third-level talisman master for the clan, I can hold my head high when I see my ancestors in the afterlife. I didn't lose face for them. I'm counting on you to fulfill my lifelong wish. After saying this, Wang Zhida's eyes became moist. Wang Shui comforted Wang Zhida, saying, "After I build my foundation, I will definitely use the entire clan's strength to nurture Dao Yuan. If he builds his foundation, becoming a third-level talisman master is within reach." Chapter 61. Returning to the cave abode, his divine sense entered the space of the spirit pearl and harvested all the ripe soul-gathering pill ingredients. The last time he asked seventh uncle to refine soul-gathering pills, he obtained more than 700 pills. After handing in 500 pills, he still had more than 200 pills left. With so many soul-gathering pills, it was enough for him to cultivate for 1 or 2 years. There were still a few hundred sets of ingredients stored in the space. Even if he cultivated to the peak stage of Qi refinement, he wouldn't need so many. Planting too many soul-gathering pill ingredients would be meaningless. Wang Daoyuan planted the newly bought golden thread spirit jujube, fiery sun wood, and a few spirit herb seeds that he got when he bought the lotus seeds. As for the 5 lotus seeds, he didn't dare to throw them directly into the fish pond. Those Qing River carps were all gluttons and would eat whatever they caught. If he threw the lotus seeds in, they would become food for the Qing River carps. He could only dig a 3-meter wide puddle in the newly cleared space and plant the lotus seeds in the puddle. He wasn't worried about whether it was black jade lotus or not. As long as it could germinate, even if it was only black water lotus, the lotus roots could be sold to his restaurant. The restaurant would have one more ingredient. After packing up, Wang Daoyuan changed into a black robe, a veil, and a bamboo hat. He used the invisibility spell and left the Pill Seal Pavilion, revealing himself in a secluded place. He returned to the Pill Seal Pavilion and bought some detoxification and healing pills, as well as 50 kilograms of spirit ink. These spirit ink were all made from Tier 1 cinnabar. The Wang family had a Tier 1 superior grade cinnabar mine, so they didn't lack Tier 1 spirit ink. Moreover, this cinnabar mine would occasionally produce some impure Tier 2 inferior grade cinnabar. After refining, it could be made into Tier 2 spirit ink. Thus, the Wang family had plenty of spirit ink. Other than for personal use, they could also sell it in large quantities. After leaving the Pill Seal Pavilion, he went straight to the Divine Weapon Pavilion and chose a Tier 1 superior grade talisman pen. It wouldn't be strange if he encountered any trouble on this trip to the heaven/mountain range. It was better to be prepared. Although he still had more than 400 spirit talismans, he couldn't say when he would run out. With the talisman pen and spirit ink, he could refine spirit talismans in his free time. After everything was ready, Wang Daoyuan took the family's spirit ship and headed northeast along the stream. From Clear Glass City to the upper reaches of Clear Stream, he could only take a spirit ship. It wasn't that the land route was difficult to travel, but after leaving Clear Glass City, all the way to the outskirts of the heavenly/mountain range, the south bank of Clear Stream was basically the Liang clan's territory, and 1,000 miles of the north bank was also controlled by the Liang clan, not allowing people from opposing clans to pass through. The Liang family's territory surrounded Clear Glass City from the east, north, and west. They wanted to isolate the Wang, Yang, and Meng families. Fortunately, the Wang and Meng families both had waterways that led to Qingli City. The Liang family was not bold enough to block off the waterways. After all, there were many mines in Huiyan Mountain, and the ores they mined were all transported by Qingli River's waterway. The various powers in Qingli Prefecture also mainly relied on the waterway to transport their goods. If the Liang family dared to seal the waterway, the elders of the Netherworld sect would skin the Liang family alive. The Yang family was also located on the southern bank of the clear stream. Most of their territory was only a few dozen kilometers away from the clear stream, but there was only one territory on the bank of the clear stream that was close to the periphery of the sky/mountain range. Demonic beasts ran amok there, and even rank 2 demonic beasts frequently appeared. Even Foundation establishment cultivators could not protect that place. It simply did not have the conditions to build a pier. Because the Yang and Liang families did not get along, the Liang family prohibited the Yang family from using the pier along the clear stream. This caused the Yang family to transport large quantities of goods by land, severely affecting the Yang family's development. However, the Liang family also did not have many years left. The Liang family's ancestor, Liang, was already over 400 years old. In less than 100 years, he would definitely die. And the rest of the Liang family did not have any peerlessly talented people. It would be very difficult for them to give birth to another Zifu realm cultivator. And the Yang family's ancestor, Yang Yong, was only over 350 years old. He still had over 100 years of life left. When Liang passed away, the Liang family that had been causing trouble everywhere for several hundred years would definitely be beaten to death. Although Liang was an outsider of the Netherworld sect and could ask the elders of the outsider to help. But those fellows of the outsider faction who would not get up early without benefits would not help for free. If the Liang family asked for help, wouldn't they have to pay a huge price? Once or twice was still fine, but after a long time, the Liang family definitely would not be able to hold on. Most likely, before the Wang, Yang, and Meng families destroyed them, they would be eaten up by the outsider faction of the Netherworld sect. And the Liang family's territory was surrounded by the 3 families. If they did not eat up one of the 3 families, they would have no place to expand at all. It would also be very difficult for the Liang family's strength to improve. Therefore, the Wang, Yang, and Meng families had always been in a defensive state. As long as they could hold off the Liang family for another 100 years, the Liang family would definitely be finished. Wang Daoyuan sat on the spirit ship. Looking at the beautiful mountains and rivers on both sides, he felt a surge of anger in his heart. This was all the Wang family's territory. For 300 years, the Liang family had forcefully seized it and nibbled away the essence of the land. There were many spirit veins, spirit fields, and mines on both sides of the clear stream. All of them benefited the Liang family. Fortunately, the spirit ship was empty and very fast. It only took slightly more than 2 days to travel 1,000 miles. It did not make him feel angry for too long. 1,000 miles away from Clear Glass City, the north bank of the clear stream was already the Wang family's territory. There were not many spirit veins in this area, but there were a few mines. Continuing up the clear stream, in less than 250 miles, they entered the periphery of the heaven/mountain range. There were many spirit veins and mines there, but demon beasts ran rampant. Itinerant cultivators who were desperate came and went, and it was very difficult to establish a stronghold. The spirit ship traveled another 50 miles and arrived at Clear Stream Village. Wang Daoyuan left the ship and went ashore. Looking at the familiar village, he felt emotional. He could be considered to have returned home in glory. Wang Daoyuan went ashore at the west side of Clear Stream Village. He walked along the small path in the fields towards the village. Under a willow tree by the side of the road, a little boy of 3 or 4 years old was squatting on the ground to pee and play with mud. His body was covered in mud and his face was smeared like a cat. Wang Daoyuan walked closer to take a look. This brat's face was somewhat familiar. He was probably the child of some childhood playmate. The little boy did not notice someone coming over and was playing with the mud happily. Wang Daoyuan walked over and lightly kicked his butt, asking, "Little fellow, what's your name?" The little fellow turned around and saw that the person who asked the question was wearing the clothes of an immortal. He remembered that his parents had warned him not to provoke immortals, and he was so scared that he cried. The child's cries spread. Not far from the village entrance, a dog barked in a deep courtyard. A black dog barked and rushed over. The dog looked even more familiar. It looked exactly the same as Dahe, but it was bigger. Wang Daoyuan called out tentatively, "Dahe." The black dog stopped barking and looked at him. It was stunned for a long time, then walked to his side and sniffed for a long time before recognizing him. It immediately shook its head and wagged its tail, circling around him and rubbing its head against his leg. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. It was really Dahe. However, this was not very possible. Even if a normal dog was carefully cared for, it would be difficult for it to live to 20 years old. For a dog like Dahe, who was always free, it usually could not live past 12 years old. When he left home, Dahe was already 6 or 7 years old. After 15 years, Dahe was still alive and did not look old at all. Could it be that it had become a spirit beast? Wang Daoyuan carefully examined Dahe's body and found that its physical quality was far better than ordinary dogs. It was equivalent to a human practitioner in the peak of opening meridians. It was only one step away from becoming a first-level spirit beast. No wonder it was still so strong after living for more than 20 years. Compared with human beings, spirit beasts' cultivation progress was slow, but their lifespans were longer. With a little progress in cultivation, their lifespans would be greatly increased. It was normal that Dahe could live until now without showing any signs of aging. At this time, a middle-aged woman came out of the deep courtyard and shouted, "Who bullied my eldest grandson?" When Wang Daoyuan saw the woman, his eyes blurred and he shouted, "Mother." After all, they were mother and son. Even if they had not seen each other for more than 10 years, they were connected by heart. Seeing that Dahe was so close to Wang Daoyuan, she was sure that the immortal in front of her was her son, Erwa. She asked, "Are you Erwa?" Wang Daoyuan replied while crying, "Mother, it's me. I'm Erwa." Wang Daoyuan's mother was a mortal of the Yang family. Mortal women in cultivation families generally did not have names, and Wang Daoyuan's mother was no exception. After marrying, she had been called Madame Yang. Madame Yang ran over and hugged her son. She cried and said, "Erwa, you're finally back. You left home when you were 5 years old, and you've been away for more than 10 years. I miss you so much." Chapter 62. Wang Daoyuan persuaded Mrs. Wang Yang for a long time before she stopped crying. "Erwa, come home with me. Your father always brags about you to the villagers. He will be very happy when you come back." Wang Daoyuan pointed to the crying child and asked, "Is this my eldest brother's son? I was wondering why he looked so familiar." He wanted to hug his eldest nephew, but the child was covered in urine and mud. It was really disgusting. He ran his spiritual power and summoned a large amount of water from the clear stream. He washed the child from head to toe. Then he waved his hand to disperse the water on the child's body and dried his clothes. Looking at her grandson who had become clean in an instant, Mrs. Wang Yang didn't dare to recognize him. She was so shocked by her son's means that she couldn't speak. The little brat also opened his mouth in surprise. Wang Daoyuan picked up his eldest nephew and supported his mother as they walked towards the deep courtyard. Dahe followed behind them excitedly. Walking through the gate, he scanned with his divine sense and found that the house was still a 3-section courtyard. It seemed that the family took good care of their parents. When Wang Daoyuan was a child, his family lived in a brick house without walls. It was incomparable with the current 3-section courtyard house. The gatehouse next to the gate was Dahe's nest. With Dahe as the gatehouse, no one dared to enter except for the villagers. Entering the inner courtyard, a middle-aged man in clean and simple clothes was cleaning the courtyard. It was Wang Daoyuan's father, Wang Fu. As soon as he saw an immortal holding his grandson, he hurriedly stepped forward and said, "May I know what brings you here?" Then he scolded his grandson, "Little brat, come down quickly." Mrs. Wang Yang said disdainfully, "Old man, your eyesight is really bad. Can't you see who this is?" Wang Fu looked carefully for a long time before asking, "Is this Hua?" Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "Father, it's me. I'm back." Wang Fu laughed heartily. "You're finally back. You've been away from home for 15 years, 1 month, and 3 days. You're finally back." A father's love was like a mountain, silent but deep. Although he didn't show it, he clearly remembered how long his son had been away. Hearing Wang Fu's laughter, an 8 or 9-year-old boy ran out from the west wing. This boy was 70 to 80% similar to Wang Daoyuan. He was very big, at least 120 to 30 kilograms. One look and one could tell that he would definitely grow up to be a strong man. Wang Fu introduced, "This is your third brother. He hasn't been given a proper name yet. His nickname is Sanhua." She then scolded Sanhua, "You've been clamoring to find your second brother all day long. Now that your second brother is back, you don't know how to call people." Sanhua stared at Wang Daoyuan's face for a long time and asked, "Are you really my second brother?" Wang Daoyuan smiled and replied, "Look at my face. Don't you find it familiar?" Sanhua scratched his head and said, "He does look familiar, but I can't remember where I've seen him before." Madame Wang Yang knocked on her silly son's head and said, "Go and look in the mirror." Sanhua ran to the fish tank in the yard and looked at the fish tank. "I was wondering why you looked so familiar. It turns out that you look similar to me." Wang Daoyuan asked, "Do you believe that I'm your second brother now?" Sanhua smiled and said, "I believe you. Second brother, you're an immortal now. Is there anything delicious to eat? I can't even fill my stomach at home." Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. Looking at the house, it didn't look like there was a shortage of food. Why couldn't they have enough to eat? He asked, "Father, is our family short of food? Why is Sanhua still hungry?" Wang Fu sighed and said, "Alas, our family is not short of food, but Sanhua eats too much. Since he was 3 years old, his appetite has been different from ordinary people. Now, he can eat 10 jin of food for a meal, but he still says that he's not full. The immortals in the family have come to see him, but they didn't see anything wrong with him. I'm afraid that he'll eat too much, so I don't dare to let him eat. Look at his body. Can he be hungry?" Wang Daoyuan used the fire attribute talisman to cook 2 jin of spiritual grains from the space. He asked Sanhua to bring a container to eat. This guy directly brought a basin. He put the spiritual grains into the basin and said, "Eat as much as you want. After eating, there's still more. I guarantee that you'll be full." Sanhua held the basin and began to eat. The 2 jin of spiritual grains were quickly eaten up. Seeing this, Wang Daoyuan was shocked. 1 jin of spiritual grains was equivalent to 30 jin of ordinary food. If he ate 1 jin, he wouldn't be hungry for 3 days. 2 jin of spiritual grains were eaten up so quickly. It seemed that he wasn't full yet. Wang Daoyuan continued to cook spiritual grains for him in the space. Sanhua ate 5 jin of spiritual grains before patting his belly and saying, "I'm finally full." Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to check his third brother's whole body. He didn't find any problems, but his body absorbed nutrients very quickly. Even the spiritual energy was quickly absorbed. It was very likely that he had a special physique. He said with a smile, "Third brother, do you know how much you've eaten? This 5 jin of spiritual grains is equivalent to 150 jin of food." Wang Yang was frightened and hurriedly asked Wang Daoyuan, Sanhua ate so much. Won't he be full? Wang Daoyuan replied, Mother, don't worry. This spiritual grain is just better than normal grain. It's only 5 caddies. Third brother can eat 10 caddies of grain without any problems, so 5 caddies of spiritual grain won't make him full. It's just that spiritual grains are not easy to digest. He may not be hungry for a few days. Only then did Wang Yang feel relieved. She turned and went into the kitchen to cook something for Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan hadn't tasted his mother's cooking for many years. He was really a little hungry. However, eating ordinary food was not only not good for him, but also had some disadvantages. So, he took out a few jin of spiritual grains and 2 2-foot-long pseudo-spiritual fish from the space of the spiritual pearl. He gave them to his mother and said, Mother, eating ordinary food is harmful to my cultivation. It's better to use these things to cook. You can eat them to strengthen your body. Seeing the 2 big fish, the eyes of nephew Gu in his arms lit up. Children were curious, and he was no exception. He struggled to get down. Wang Daoyuan put him down, and he rushed directly to the 2 big fish. He even held the 2 fish in his arms. The clothes that had just been washed were stained with the smell of fish. Looking at the 2 fish, Sanhua's face was full of regret. He said angrily, Second brother, you tricked me into eating spiritual grains. When I was full, you took out the fish. Wang Daoyuan touched Sanhua's head and said, Don't worry, there are so many fish that you can't finish them. Hearing this, Sanhua immediately turned from anger to joy. After chatting for a while, a man and a woman walked in from outside. The man looked familiar. He was Wang Daoyuan's eldest brother, Wang Meng. He was a very strong man. Among the 3 brothers, Wang Daoyuan, who had a medium build, was the thinnest. Wang Meng saw an immortal who looked like him and was talking with his father. He guessed, Is this second brother back? Wang Daoyuan smiled, Big brother, we haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. You can still recognize me. Of course. Wang Meng said proudly, We are brothers. The sister-in-law's family was in a nearby village. She was also a mortal member of the Wang family, so she was called Wang Wangshi. Wang Wangshi went forward and bowed. Wang Daoyuan said, You are welcome. Then, Wang Wangshi went to the kitchen and took her son away from the big fish. The naughty child quickly ran to Wang Daoyuan to seek protection. Wang Daoyuan called a ball of water and washed the naughty child from head to toe. He smiled and said, Before I entered the village, I saw nephew Gu playing with the mud at the entrance. I helped him clean, but he got dirty again. Chapter 63. Seeing that her son had been washed clean, Mrs. Wang stopped beating him and went into the kitchen to help cook. Seeing that his mother had stopped beating him, the naughty boy became arrogant again. Wang Meng glared at him and he ran back to the east wing. The 4 of them chatted about their daily lives. Unknowingly, the meal was ready. The family gathered around the table to eat, and the atmosphere was harmonious. Since Wang Daoyuan embarked on the path of cultivation at the age of 5, the family had never gathered together for a meal like today. Everyone had a good time eating. Only Sanhua was sulking. Looking at the delicious braised fish and fish soup, he had no appetite at all. For a foodie, this was the greatest torture. Everyone ate and drank to their fill. After eating food rich in spiritual energy, they felt refreshed and felt as if they were a few years younger. Only Sanhua still had a miserable expression. Since they had a dog at home, the leftovers were naturally given to Dahe. Wang Fu called Dahe, and it immediately rushed into the inner courtyard from the kennel. The dog's nose was very sensitive, and it had already smelled the fragrance of the spiritual grains and pseudo-spirit fish. However, as an excellent watchdog, it could never steal food without its master's permission, so it had to lie in the kennel and drool. Now that it heard its master's call, it couldn't hold back and rushed over to eat something good to improve its life. Mrs. Wang Yang poured the fish bones for Dahei to eat. Dahei deserved to be a spirit beast that was about to become a first-level spirit beast. The pseudo-spirit fish could be regarded as a fish that had embarked on the path of cultivation. Its bones were harder than those of ordinary fish, but they were directly crushed by Dahei's sharp teeth. The bones of the two big fish and some fish soup were eaten clean in a dozen breaths of time. Dahei's eyes began to stare at the leftover spiritual grains again. Mrs. Wang Yang was used to being thrifty, so she was reluctant to feed it such good things. Looking at its pitiful look, Wang Daoyuan took out a spirit-gathering pill. Dahei looked at the spirit-gathering pill with its eyes wide open. The instinctive reaction of animals was much more sensitive than that of humans. Although Dahei's intelligence was only a little higher than that of ordinary dogs, when it saw the spirit-gathering pill, it instinctively felt that it would be of great use to it. Wang Daoyuan fed the spirit-gathering pill to Dahei. Dahei immediately swallowed the spirit-gathering pill and lay aside, as if waiting for something. After waiting for a quarter of an hour, her mother and sister-in-law had cleaned up the pots and pans, but Dahei still had no reaction at all. Oh, Yangming mumbled to himself, Big Black was only a step away from becoming a rank 1 spirit beast. The spirit-gathering pill was a pill used by Qi refinement cultivators to increase their cultivation level. It was useful for late-stage Qi refinement cultivators. However, Blackie's cultivation level was not as good as a first-stage Qi refinement cultivator. There should be some sort of reaction after consuming such a spirit-gathering pill. After waiting for an hour, Dahei finally reacted. It began to get excited and ran around the yard. Wang Daoyuan finally understood that he had been thinking too highly of himself. Human cultivators revolved their cultivation methods and refined spiritual pills. Naturally, they would have a clear reaction as soon as the spiritual pill entered their stomach. Dahei was just an ordinary dog that had mutated. It didn't know how to cultivate at all, so it could only digest and absorb the spirit-gathering pill. Dahei became more and more uneasy. It rushed out of the house and ran towards the clear stream. Wang Daoyuan's cultivation level was at the 7th level of Qi refinement. Naturally, he would not be left behind by Dahei, who had not yet become a spirit beast, and he also ran out. Dahei ran along the river bank, consuming too much energy in its body. However, the situation was still within Wang Daoyuan's expectations. After all, Dahei was a quasi-spirit beast, and its body was much stronger than that of ordinary cultivators at the early stage of Qi refinement. A spirit-gathering pill would not cause any harm to it. After running for a while, Dahei's body began to emit white smoke. It seemed to be very hot. It stretched out its tongue and panted as it ran. In the end, it couldn't stand the heat and directly jumped into the clear stream. After struggling for an hour, Dahei's spiritual power fluctuations began to weaken, but it still did not succeed in breaking through. If it continued like this, it would be impossible for it to become a rank 1 spirit beast. Wang Daoyuan threw another spirit-gathering pill over. Although Dahei was hot all over, it still swallowed the spirit-gathering pill. Another hour passed, and Dahei's spiritual power fluctuations, which had gradually weakened, became stronger again. At this time, some demonic beasts in the water sensed the spiritual power and came over to join in the fun. The life of demonic beasts was much harder than that of humans. They could only improve their cultivation by instinct or by swallowing spiritual objects. When they sensed the spiritual power fluctuations, they all came forward, trying to eat Dahei to increase their cultivation. Of course, those who could take a fancy to Dahei's spiritual power were not powerful. There were only a few demonic beasts of lower rank 1, and the others were not ranked. Wang Daoyuan naturally would not let the demonic beasts have their way, so he directly used the water dragon skill. The dragon clan was the king of all aquatic demonic beasts, and the water dragon's skill carried a trace of dragon power. Chapter 64. Wang Daoyuan asked his eldest brother to give every family in the village a freshwater fish. There were still 20 to 30 fish, turtles, shrimp, and crabs left. Mortal fire was useful for unranked fish, shrimp, and crabs, but it was useless for a first-tier, low-grade crocodile. Neither of them were fire attribute cultivators, so they could only use fire attribute spirit talismans to roast the crocodile. After cutting open the crocodile's stomach and removing its scales, Wang Daoyuan used the mystic yang sword and 2 stones to build a simple roasting rack. He took out a first-tier, high-grade fire attribute spirit talisman. After activating it, he roasted the crocodile with spirit fire. Wang Daoxing's eyelids twitched when he saw this. A first-tier, high-grade talisman cost 5 spirit stones. He didn't know any cultivation arts, so he couldn't earn many spirit stones in a month. Wang Daoyuan gave the other freshwater fish to his father and left them for the family to eat. The crocodile was soon roasted. The two tore off a large piece of meat from the crocodile and ate happily. Nephew Gu was drooling at the sight. He ran over, wanting to share some of the meat, but Wang Daoyuan pulled him aside. This crocodile meat can only be eaten by cultivators. Ordinary people can die from just one bite. If you want some meat, ask Grandpa for it. You can eat it. Ordinary people's bodies were too weak, so they could only eat non-ranked phase. Apart from spirit grains, which had a very mild spirit chi, eating a little of it could be fatal. Sanhua was also very hungry. It wanted to eat some crocodile meat, but its stomach was still full. Blackie didn't care. It monopolized the crocodile's internal organs and was happily gnawing at them. It had used up too much energy to increase its size. Now, it had made up for it and could also increase its cultivation. Spirit beasts without bloodline inheritances relied on eating phase to increase their cultivation. The two of them chatted as they ate. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Second brother, why do you have time to come to Qingxi village?" Wang Daoxing was stunned for a moment. He slapped his thigh and said, "I saw that there was demonic beast meat and forgot about business. Something happened at Mirror Iron Mountain, and the Patriarch sent me to deal with it." Mirror Iron Mountain's original name was Mirror Mountain. The origin of the name was unknown. The ancestors of the Wang family found a red iron mine in the belly of the mountain, so it was renamed Mirror Iron Mountain. It was not far from Qingxi village, only about 50 kilometers away. It was under the care of 8th uncle Wang Shoujiang. Most of the people mining there were ordinary members of the Wang family. There were also some itinerant cultivators at the initial stage of qi refinement or even meridian opening. They were there to earn some cultivation resources. What happened? Wang Daoyuan asked while eating. Wang Daoxing swallowed the meat in his mouth and said, "Recently, there have been people disappearing in the mine every now and then. At first, the disappearances were all rogue cultivators. After all, it is very common for rogue cultivators to leave after earning some resources, so the clansmen guarding the mine did not notice. Later on, mortals in the clan began to go missing. The families of the missing came to the mine to inquire. Only then did 8th uncle know that someone had gone missing. He searched the area but found nothing. He waited for a few days but still found nothing. 8th uncle reported it to the family, and the Patriarch sent me to assist 8th uncle. His 8th uncle, Wang Shoujiang, was not even 50 years old yet. He was at the 9th level of Qi disciple. His talent was not bad, and he belonged to the category of combat talents. Besides, it was impossible to guard a business at the edge of the family's territory without any fighting power. What's more, the Mirror Iron Mountain was not far from the edge of the sky/mountain range, and there were often first-rank demonic beasts around. Wang Daoyuan was a little curious and asked, 8th uncle can't handle it. Why did the patriarch send you here? Wang Daoxing glanced at him and said, why? Are you looking down on me? Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, how would I dare? It's just that your strength shouldn't be as good as 8th uncle's. When it comes to using your brain, you don't know anything about it. Aside from being a helper for 8th uncle when there are powerful demonic beasts, you won't be of any use. I don't know what the patriarch's intention is. Does the patriarch think that the demonic beast is so strong that 8th uncle can't deal with it alone? Wang Daoxing was still chewing meat in his mouth. How would I know? The patriarch didn't tell me the specific situation. He just asked me to come here and listen to 8th uncle's arrangements. Wang Daoyuan thought for a while and said, then I'll go with you. We can take care of each other. Since we're searching for the enemy, I'll bring Big Black. It has a keen sense of smell and is better than us in this aspect. The soul-chasing bee could not be exposed. Otherwise, it would be more efficient to use it to track the enemy. Wang Daoxing naturally had no objections. Having someone to help him was better than going alone. Wang Daoyuan bade farewell to his parents and put away the roasted crocodile and Big Black's food. He put Big Black into the spirit beast bag and followed his second brother to Mirror Iron Mountain. The spirit ship was already far away, and the two could only rely on their legs. They used first-grade high-grade spirit travel talismans, and their speed was much faster than riding the spirit ship. The two ran for less than an hour, and Mirror Iron Mountain was already in sight. Mirror Iron Mountain was not tall, only a few hundred feet. The mountain's roots were especially large, but this made it convenient for the Wang family to mine and transport the ores. This place was only about 10 miles away from Mirror Iron Mountain. Wang Daoyuan let his second brother go alone while he disguised himself as a loose cultivator and patrolled the nearby area. If the two of them went together, if the enemy was human, it would be easy for them to hide and not make a move. That would be troublesome. One could be a thief for 1,000 days, but not a thief for 1,000 days. If the two of them separated, one in the light and one in the dark, the enemy would not be too wary. Since the enemy dared to provoke a cultivator at the 9th level of Qi refinement who was relatively strong in fights of magical powers, they would not be scared away by an 8th level Qi refinement cultivator. Wang Daoyuan was in the dark, so it was convenient for him to investigate and not make the enemy too vigilant. He changed into a black robe and put on a veil and a bamboo hat. It was already late. Wang Daoyuan used an invisibility spell and an aura concealment talisman to sneak into a small forest about 1.5 miles southwest of Mirror Iron Mountain. He found a large tree with lush foliage and hid among the branches and leaves. With the invisibility spell and aura concealment talisman, as well as the cover of the branches and leaves, as long as the enemy was not a Foundation Establishment cultivator or above, it would be difficult for them to discover him even if he was under the tree. Of course, the enemy could not be a Foundation Establishment cultivator. Otherwise, they could have just faced him head-on. There was no need to be sneaky. Perhaps the enemy saw that the Wang family had a new helper and did not know the details, so they did not dare to act rashly. It was safe for a few days. In these few days, Wang Daoyuan explored the surroundings and released Big Black to search, but he did not find any traces of demon beasts or other cultivators nearby. After waiting for a few more days, there was still no movement. Wang Daoyuan decided to change his strategy. He first secretly sent a message to Wang Daoxing, asking him and 8th uncle to announce that the problem had been solved. Then, he recruited a group of miners and used an aura concealment talisman to disguise himself as an early-stage Qi refinement itinerant cultivator. Based on the fact that the enemy first attacked itinerant cultivators and then ordinary people, it could be seen that his main target was cultivators. The reason why he attacked ordinary people was probably because there were no more cultivators. And Wang Daoyuan used a mid-grade level 1 aura concealment talisman, which could not completely conceal his aura at the 7th level of qi refinement. The aura that leaked out was probably at the 1st or 2nd level of qi refinement or the peak of meridian opening. After the incident, some itinerant cultivators went missing, and some were scared away. There were no more cultivators among the miners of Mirror Iron Mountain. Wang Daoyuan went in. As a rare cultivator miner, he was more attractive than ordinary people. He was likely to become the enemy's first target. Wang Daoyuan was not worried that the enemy was too strong and would kill him. With his cloud smoke escape and hundreds of talismans, it was difficult for anyone below the Foundation establishment to take him down. Moreover, in the mine, the enemy had little room to dodge. If he randomly scattered talismans, it would be difficult for the enemy to dodge all of them. If the enemy did not have particularly strong means and was at the peak of qi refinement, he also had a chance to kill them. Of course, the enemy's strength would not be too strong. At least, they would not be a match for 8th Uncle. Otherwise, wouldn't it be better to take down 8th Uncle directly than to capture itinerant cultivators at the early stage qi refinement? Chapter 65. On the second day after Wang Daoyuan sent the message, 8th Uncle Wang Shoujiang sent out a recruitment notice. Some of the ordinary clansmen in the vicinity came to Mirror Iron Mountain one after another. After all, this was the edge of the Wang clan's territory and there were many demon beasts. It was very difficult to feed a family just by growing crops. Most of the young and strong clansmen chose to work in the clan's mines and forests. Wang Daoyuan changed into a black robe and did not wear a bamboo hat. He changed his name to Huang Yun and snuck into Mirror Iron Mountain. There were many loose cultivators dressed like this, so it was not conspicuous. This time, apart from the ordinary clansmen of the Wang clan, there were also a few loose cultivators who were only at the 1st or 2nd level of qi refinement. Most loose cultivators did not have a systematic inheritance, so it was extremely rare for them to know the various arts of cultivation. For cultivators like them who had just stepped onto the path of cultivation, their cultivation was low, their combat strength was weak, and they did not have the ability to hunt demon beasts. They also did not have any special skills. Other than working for some factions, there was no good way out. The Wang clan's Taoism was backward and they had always behaved with their tails between their legs. They treated ordinary itinerant cultivators kindly. They had a good reputation among loose cultivators, so there were still some loose cultivators who worked for the Wang clan. Some loose cultivators even married into the Wang clan. All the cultivation clans were happy to recruit loose cultivators. After all, every clan had many female cultivators. If they married outside, the clan would suffer too much. If a cultivator who was painstakingly cultivated married into another clan, the initial investment would be wasted. Moreover, it was easy to expose some of the clan's secrets. Unless they married into a stronger clan to seek support. For example, a female cultivator from a foundation establishment clan would marry a disciple from a Zifu clan. Instead, they could recruit outstanding loose cultivators to add new blood to the clan and increase the number of cultivators in the clan. Some loose cultivators worked in the businesses of the cultivation clans with the intention of marrying into the clan. Although most clans would not help the marrying cultivators reach foundation establishment, they would still provide a lot of daily cultivation resources. The marrying cultivators themselves would not be recognized by the clan, but their descendants would grow up in the clan and would not be looked at differently. Among the loose cultivators who entered the mines with Wang Daoyuan, there was one who had the intention of marrying into the Wang clan. This person's appearance was not bad. He was more than 7 feet tall and looked to be in his early 20s. However, he gave people a feeling of greasiness. As soon as this person saw Wang Daoyuan, he took the initiative to strike up a conversation. "Brother, do you also want to marry into the Wang family?" Wang Daoyuan felt a little strange. Why would this fellow ask such a question? Could it be that this was a popular greeting among rogue cultivators? Besides, he didn't look like someone who lived off a woman. His appearance was rather masculine, and he was more than 8 feet tall. His eyebrows were like sleeping silkworms, and his eyes were like bright stars. His face was angular, and he did not look like a pretty boy at all. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Brother, why do you ask? Are many of the miners here to marry into the Wang family?" "That's not much, but that's what I'm thinking." The slick young man said, "I am Lin Yuan. Seeing that you have an extraordinary appearance and are doing this kind of work, I thought that you also wanted to marry into the Wang family. If that's the case, I have another strong opponent." Wang Daoyuan was a little suspicious of this Lin Yuan. This fellow had never seen a female cultivator of the Wang family, and he wanted to marry into their family. Either he felt that the Immortal Dao was hopeless and did not want to work hard anymore. He wanted to find a place to stay and live a good life. To put it bluntly, he wanted to be a parasite. Or he was a spy sent by other forces. No matter which one it was, he was not a good person. Moreover, this fellow came at this time and even took the initiative to greet him. It was really possible that he was related to the previous missing persons case. 20 to 30 people came in the morning. In the afternoon, the steward took the newcomers down to the mine and assigned them work. The mine tunnel was dug according to the direction of the ore vein. There were many twists and turns, and there were also many forks. If not for the steward leading the way, no one would be able to find the place at all. In the mine, there were a senior steward and a junior steward. The senior steward was in charge of one of the matters in the mine, such as mining, transporting, logistics, and so on. Under the senior steward, there were several junior stewards, who were equivalent to team leaders. They were in charge of a few to dozens of people. Most of these stewards were relatives of the Wang clan cultivators. They did not have spirit roots. In order to let the cultivators have no worries, the clan usually gave them some work in the clan's business. The senior steward led the group of people into the mine. Each junior steward picked a few people and brought them into the mine tunnel they were in charge of. The junior steward assigned to Wang Daoyuan was an honest man in his 30s. He did not speak much and was quite good to the ordinary miners. He was quite loved and respected by the miners. There was also a loose cultivator assigned to Wang Daoyuan. He was in his 30s and was at the second level of Qi disciple. The strength of cultivators far exceeded that of ordinary people. Their mining speed was also far from what ordinary people could compare to. If there were cultivators under them, they would be able to dig out more ore in the entire mine tunnel. The junior steward would also be rewarded. The junior steward was very happy to be assigned 2 cultivators at once. He brought the newcomers to the rest area of his mine tunnel and said to the old miners, "This time, our mine tunnel has been assigned 2 cultivators. This month, we will definitely be ranked first. When the time comes, everyone will be rewarded." A robust young man sneered, "What's the use of cultivators? Were there few cultivators in the mine in the past? Didn't they all disappear without a trace? It's hard to say how many days these 2 can live." The loose cultivator who came with Wang Daoyuan was a little scared and asked, "Didn't you say that this matter has already been resolved?" The robust young man snorted and said, "What do you mean resolved? It's just that the clan sent another person over. Nothing happened these few days. After investigating for a few days, we can't even find out why they disappeared." The junior steward reprimanded, "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you still want to work?" The robust young man was not convinced. Just as he was about to continue arguing with the junior steward, he was pulled back by a few of his older companions. The junior steward assigned the newcomers to work and turned to leave. Wang Daoyuan wanted to get a few more words, so he pretended to be reckless and said, "Who cares what's causing trouble? I, Wang Daoyuan, have been cultivating since I was young. Do you think I'm afraid of those demons and ghosts? Seeing Wang Daoyuan boasting, the robust young man mocked, there were a few immortals older than you before, but they didn't even make a sound before they disappeared. No matter how strong you are, can you be stronger than the immortals sent by the clan to guard the Mirror Iron Mountain? Even that old man couldn't find out the reason, can you? Since the junior steward was not here, everyone dared to speak. One after another, they began to talk. A middle-aged man in his 40s said, speaking of which, it's strange. I'm already in my 40s, but I'm not as sleepy as you youngsters. I only sleep for 4 to 6 hours a day. But every time someone goes missing, I'm especially sleepy and can sleep for more than 8 hours. Everyone was talking enthusiastically. Wang Daoyuan also discovered the abnormalities when people went missing from their conversation. The miners all slept in the resting area at night. The so-called resting area was formed by the expansion of the mine. Everyone had a straw mattress and 2 blankets. The resting area was not big, and there were dozens of people resting here. But every time someone went missing, the other people in the same mine did not notice. Even the cultivators who had not gone missing did not notice anything. In addition, the middle-aged man said that every time someone went missing, he always slept very deeply. From this, it could be inferred that someone might have poisoned him or used a spell to calm his nerves. Chapter 66. Everyone was still discussing the disappearance enthusiastically. The newcomers did not feel much fear. After all, the culprit's first target was cultivators. There were 2 of them here, so it was not their turn for the time being. The rogue cultivator who came with Wang Daoyuan seemed very nervous and scared. Wang Daoyuan also pretended to be nervous so as not to be seen through. After about a quarter of an hour, the steward came in with a few tools. Everyone stopped discussing, and Wang Daoyuan did not hear any more useful information. The steward gave out tools to the newcomers. These tools looked like pickaxes and were made from level 1 red iron. However, they were simply forged and were not forged by a blacksmith. There were no patterns on the pickaxes either. Compared to ordinary tools, they were stronger and sharper. The steward led the group to the deepest part of the mine. There was no road ahead, only red stone walls. These stones were red iron ore. These red iron ore were not hard and were similar to ordinary stones. Mortals could also break them. With the red iron pickaxes, it was not too difficult to mine the ore. As a cultivator in the late stage of qi refining, Wang Daoyuan naturally had a much easier time than ordinary people. Although he deliberately held back his strength, the amount of ore he dug was more than 10 times that of ordinary people. The amount of ore the other cultivator dug was less than half of Wang Daoyuan's. However, Wang Daoyuan grew up in a family, so his living conditions were much better than rogue cultivators. In addition, he had eaten spirit grains and pseudo-spirit fish in recent years, so his body was relatively strong. That rogue cultivator was thin and small, so it was reasonable that Wang Daoyuan was much more capable than him. Unknowingly, it was already very late. Although the sky could not be seen in the mine, the miners' bodies were the best timer. Most of the miners were hungry and tired, so it was time to stop work and eat. The steward led the group to the dining area outside the mine. The other stewards also brought people one after another. Then, the rogue cultivators and ordinary people ate separately. The ordinary people's food was ordinary grains and some fish. Ordinary food was harmful to cultivators, so the food provided to the rogue cultivators was cooked spirit grains, which were distributed according to the amount of spirit grains mined. Wang Daoyuan was given half a gene of spirit grains. Cultivators would receive these spirit grains as their reward, while ordinary people would receive some gold, silver, or food. Wang Daoyuan did not eat these spirit grains. He had already deduced that someone might have poisoned them. Naturally, he did not dare to casually eat anything. Putting away these spirit grains, he turned around and returned to the rest area of the mine. After the meal, everyone returned to the resting area. The steward came over and asked, "Are you not satisfied with the food?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "How could I? I can't eat such good food outside. I just can't bear to eat so much. I still have a younger brother at home. He's still young and needs spirit grains to nourish his body." The young steward advised, "I can understand that. I usually save some food and bring it home for the children. Although you're an immortal, you're doing the work of more than 10 people. If you don't eat, don't tire yourself out." Wang Daoyuan expressed his gratitude and said, "Steward, don't worry. When I'm hungry, I'll naturally eat some." After saying that, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense entered the space of the spirit pearl. He cooked 2 taels of spirit grains produced in the space of the spirit pearl and took them out to eat. Naturally, no one could see any flaws. Everyone worked hard for the whole afternoon and exhausted a lot of their physical strength. After eating, they naturally began to feel sleepy. Even the rogue cultivator began to doze off. Soon, he could no longer hold on and fell asleep. Although Wang Daoyuan worked the most, he had been restraining his strength. This was much easier than refining talismans in the Dan Talisman Pavilion and cultivating spells. In order not to be too conspicuous and attract the attention of those who were secretly watching, he also pretended to be tired. However, he still chose to meditate and cultivate. Rogue cultivators who had not given up on the path of cultivation were usually more hardworking than family disciples. The resources and inheritance of rogue cultivators could not be compared to family disciples. If they wanted to stand out, they could only work harder and risk their lives. Therefore, it was not strange that Wang Daoyuan did not rest but meditated and cultivated. He did not dare to meditate. Instead, he was always vigilant to prevent someone from sneaking an attack. Unfortunately, after being careful for a night, nothing happened. Every day, he worked during the day and maintained vigilance to meditate and cultivate at night. After 5 days, everything was calm. On the night of the 6th day, Wang Daoyuan meditated and cultivated as usual. A smell like wine came from the steward. The fragrance was very light. Ordinary people could not smell it at all. Even Wang Daoyuan could barely smell it. The steward usually lived in the rest area with the ordinary workers. However, the place he lived was a special single room in the stone wall. There was a bed and furniture inside. Wang Daoyuan smelled the fragrance and held his breath vigilantly. Cultivators could hold their breath for a long time and only rely on the spiritual power in their body to maintain their life. With Wang Daoyuan's cultivation, holding his breath for 2 or 3 hours was not a problem. In order not to be seen, after he held his breath, his chest and abdomen still rose and fell regularly, pretending that he was still breathing. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense swept towards that loose cultivator, imitating his state. Because the strength he showed was much stronger than that loose cultivator, he always delayed imitating his state for a while. After less than a quarter of an hour, that loose cultivator completely entered a state of drowsiness. Wang Daoyuan also went from meditating to paralyzed on the bed. The young steward walked out of his private room. His originally honest and big brother face had turned into a ferocious one. His eyes swept back and forth between Wang Daoyuan and the other loose cultivator, as if he was choosing goods. After thinking for a while, the steward chose Wang Daoyuan. After all, Wang Daoyuan was much stronger than the other loose cultivator in terms of strength and physique. His appearance was also very good. He picked up Wang Daoyuan and stuck a first-level high-grade Earth Escape talisman on Wang Daoyuan's body. Then he used his spiritual sense to trigger the Earth Escape talisman. Wang Daoyuan was directly forced to escape underground. After doing this, the steward returned to his single room and continued to sleep as if nothing had happened. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. There was no spiritual power fluctuation on the steward's body at all. A person with no cultivation base could actually use the power of spiritual sense to trigger the talisman. He was forced to escape underground and did not have time to think about this. After a dozen breaths, he escaped to an underground cave. He just happened to fall on a giant python. This giant python was more than 5 feet long. Its body was yellow with black lines. Its body had 2 attributes of water and earth spiritual power fluctuations. However, its cultivation base was not enough. It had just entered the 1st level middle grade, which was equivalent to the 4th level of Qi refining. In a head-on fight, this giant python was not enough to be smashed by Wang Daoyuan's 2 talismans. Wang Daoyuan was ready. If this giant python dared to swallow him, he would kill it directly. Then he would catch the steward and interrogate him. Fortunately, this python did not swallow him. Instead, it wrapped him with its tail. Then it used the earth escape technique and continued to escape downwards. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. It seemed that this giant python was not an ordinary monster beast. It could actually use the earth escape technique. Ordinary 1st level monster beasts, their intelligence was still very low. Basically, they did not know spells. Unless they had the bloodline of a high-level monster beast, they had their own innate spells. Or they had a master monster beast and were taught spells. He did not feel any special bloodline in this giant python. It seemed that it should be a monster beast with a master. Otherwise, it would have directly swallowed him to increase its cultivation base. Why bother to take him to other places? Chapter 67. The giant python carried Wang Daoyuan more than 30 meters deep, and the bottom was empty. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan felt a wave of water spirit energy rushing towards him. He carefully probed his surroundings with his divine sense and discovered that this hole was actually an underground river flowing towards the south. It should be flowing into the clear stream. The giant python did not go towards the clear stream. Instead, it carried Wang Daoyuan upstream. As the giant python gradually went deeper into the underground river, the surrounding water spirit energy became denser and denser. It was already comparable to the vicinity of a mid-grade Tier 1 spirit vein. After a quarter of an hour, the giant python had already traveled dozens of miles. At this moment, the density of the spirit energy was comparable to a high-grade Tier 1 spirit vein. Furthermore, it was extremely close to a low-grade Tier 2 spirit vein. The giant python stopped moving forward and stopped in the underground river. With a swing of its tail, it threw Wang Daoyuan towards the stone wall beside the river. Just as Wang Daoyuan was about to smash into the stone wall, a door suddenly opened on the stone wall. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to hurriedly investigate the situation inside the stone wall. He only discovered that there were many restrictions inside. If he were to enter, it would definitely be difficult for him to escape with his strength. Wang Daoyuan adjusted his body in the air and removed the force of the giant python's tail swing. Then, he took out 3 golden sword talismans and threw them into the stone door. The 3 small golden swords flew into the stone door. With a burst of explosive sounds, the small golden swords disappeared. Seeing that he had woken up, the giant python raised half of its body from the water and opened its bloody mouth to bite him. Although Wang Daoyuan did not have much close combat experience, he had still been beaten by the 12th uncle Wang Shui for 3 months when he was consolidating his cultivation. Facing a giant python that had just entered the middle grade of Tier 1, he did not feel any pressure. In order to hide his strength, he did not use the talisman again, nor did he use the cloud mist escape or the water dragon technique. He only drew out the profound yang sword. The python bit at him. The long sword in his hand chopped at the python's head. Borrowing the rebound force, he retreated to the stone wall and fell to the ground along the stone wall. As a Qi refinement cultivator, it was better to be on the ground. Even if he had strength in the air, he would not be able to use it. It had to be said that although this python's cultivation was not very high, its physical strength was not weak. As soon as they exchanged blows, Wang Daoyuan's arm became slightly numb. He knew that if they were at the same cultivation level, he wouldn't be able to defeat this giant python. The giant python's attack missed, but Wang Daoyuan didn't gain any advantage. It opened its bloody mouth and tried to bite Wang Daoyuan again. This time, he stood on the ground and had room to maneuver. He kicked his feet hard and deviated from his original position. The giant python's stinky mouth bit his previous position. The profound yang sword in Wang Daoyuan's hand pierced out, striking the giant python's neck. Unfortunately, the python's skin was coarse and its flesh was thick. The profound yang sword was also not very sharp. This sword was only able to pierce an inch in and was unable to go any deeper. He flicked his sword upwards, leaving a half-foot-long wound on the giant python's neck. Blood continued to seep out of the wound, but this wound was not even a minor injury for the giant python that was more than 5 feet long. The wound instead stimulated the giant python's ferocious nature. It raised its head and pounced at Wang Daoyuan again. Although the giant python's physical body was strong, its cultivation and divine sense were far inferior to Wang Daoyuan's. Its reaction speed was also far behind. Before its mouth could bite, Wang Daoyuan jumped up and landed on the giant python's neck. The giant python's neck bent, revealing a gap in the scales at the back of its neck. Wang Daoyuan held the profound yang sword tightly with both hands and pierced through the gap in the scales at the giant python's neck. This sword was not blocked by the scales and entered more than 3 inches into the python's body. It could be considered a light injury to the giant python. Even the flexibility of its head was affected. The giant python felt the pain and wanted to counterattack, but Wang Daoyuan was standing on its neck. No matter how powerful its mouth was, it couldn't bite the back of his head. Although pythons were agile, they all had a weakness. Their mouths couldn't reach their tails, and their tails naturally couldn't hit the back of their heads. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan was standing on the back of the python's neck, which was a blind spot for the python. At this moment, the profound yang sword was still stuck in the gap between the python's scales, constantly bleeding it. The python twisted its body with all its might, trying to throw Wang Daoyuan off. Unfortunately, the profound yang sword was stuck in the ground tightly. Wang Daoyuan held the sword hilt tightly, and no matter how the giant python tried to shake its body, it wouldn't come down. The pain on its neck made the giant python extremely irritable. It used its neck to smash into the stone wall in an attempt to smash Wang Daoyuan to death. When the giant python's neck was less than 3 meters away from the stone wall, Wang Daoyuan abandoned the profound yang sword and ran down the python's body, avoiding the collision. However, the profound yang sword was still stuck in the giant python's neck. With this collision, the profound yang sword had penetrated more than half a foot. Even though the giant python's skin was thick, it was still heavily injured. The python's head drooped down weakly. Wang Daoyuan once again ran to the giant python's neck. Holding the profound yang sword, he used all his strength to stir the sword, hoping to cause more damage to the giant python. The giant python let out a series of roars, but it was powerless. Blood spurted out from the profound yang sword like a fountain. Seeing that stirring the wound was effective, Wang Daoyuan changed from stirring to cutting horizontally to widen the wound. Sure enough, as the wound expanded, the blood spurted higher and higher. The giant python was already powerless to resist. In less than a quarter of an hour, the python would die from blood loss. An old voice sounded. This time, it was this evil creature that offended Daoyu. Daoyu, please be magnanimous and let it live. Wang Daoyuan mocked. Daoyu's words are really easy to say. You poisoned me and even dragged me here. With such tight cooperation, you really are a good beast. When the person in the dark heard Wang Daoyuan scolding him, he snorted coldly and said, Dao, you should leave now. Don't waste your life. Of course, these words were only to deceive a fool who had no experience in the pugilistic world. The secret cave abode had been exposed. How could the person in the dark let someone who knew about it leave alive? Wang Daoyuan said disdainfully, I was sleeping well. This beast dragged me here and wants me to leave with just a few words? How can there be such a good thing? The person in the dark said angrily, this matter is also Daoyu's fault. You hid your cultivation and sneaked into my territory. You can't blame this evil creature for being captured here. These words made Wang Daoyuan so angry that he laughed. As far as I know, this mirror iron mountain is the property of the Wang family. May I ask who Daoyu is to the Wang family? The person in the dark said with a smile, Daoyu, are you going to stand up for the Wang family? I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Wang Daoyuan pulled out the mystic yang sword and jumped down from the python. He said, it's only 2 moves. How does Daoyu know that I don't have the ability? The person in the dark sneered, it's hard to persuade a damned ghost with kind words. I gave Daoyu a chance to leave. Unfortunately, Daoyu didn't cherish it. Then stay. I haven't captured a late-stage qi refinement itinerant cultivator. You are the first. With that said, 2 smaller pythons and a 4-feet-long crocodile crawled out of the door. These 3 demon beasts were all middle-grade Tier 1. They were even stronger than the python from before. Following that, an old man in a black robe walked out of the stone door. He asked with a smile, are these evil creatures worthy of Daoyu's attention? I've long advised Daoyu to leave, but you insist on sending yourself to your death. Why do you have to do this at such a young age? I advise Daoyu to be obedient. Resisting is just looking for trouble. If you give up resisting, you will die a quick death and I will kill you easily. Why not? Chapter 68. Wang Daoyuan sneered, a toad yawning, such big words. You dare to ask me to surrender with just these few pieces of rotten garlic? After saying that, Wang Daoyuan condensed a ball of water spiritual energy and turned it into a 3-feet-long water dragon, emitting a faint dragon's aura. The 3 demonic beasts sensed the dragon's might and retreated a distance before the battle even started. The black-robed old man said in surprise, the water dragon's scales and claws can intimidate monsters, you're from the Wang clan? No wonder you're looking for death. If Wang Shui came personally, I would be afraid of him. You little kid, the water dragon you condensed is only 3 feet long, and you dare to be impudent in front of me. Wang Daoyuan mocked, you old fool, you really boast shamelessly. Give me back my 12th uncle and you're afraid of him. If the 12th uncle came personally, even if you peed in your pants, the 12th uncle would make you hold it back. I'm enough to take care of you. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. Surrender now and tell me who ordered you to come. I'll let you die a quick death. Otherwise, it'll be too late for you to beg for mercy. The black-robed old man became angry and scolded, little bastard, you're courting death. After saying that, he ordered the 3 frightened monsters to come forward. Although the 3 monsters were afraid, they didn't dare to disobey and could only slowly crawl forward. Wang Daoyuan's water dragon was still too small, and the water dragon technique wasn't good at attacking. He simply wrapped the water dragon around his body and turned it into a dragon-patterned armor. This was a technique derived from the Wang clan's water dragon technique and the water armor technique, water dragon armor, which could greatly increase one's defense. Wang Daoyuan's water dragon armor was still a deterrent to demonic beasts. Under the urging of the black-robed old man, the 3 demonic beasts finally arrived in front of Wang Daoyuan. The 3 demonic beasts attacked Wang Daoyuan at the same time. Wang Daoyuan directly used the smoke escape technique, and a cloud of mist with a diameter of over 30 meters instantly appeared. Wang Daoyuan disappeared from his original position. In this place, the water spirit qi was very dense. When Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape technique, the cloud he condensed was much larger than usual. The three demonic beasts missed and crashed into each other. They did not know what to do in the fog. Wang Daoyuan suddenly appeared about 3 meters away from the black-robed old man and threw out a golden sword talisman. At this distance, unless one was prepared, it would be very difficult to dodge. From the old man's surprised expression, it could be seen that he had not expected Wang Daoyuan to do this. If this golden sword art was hit, even if he didn't die, he would be severely injured. Just when Wang Daoyuan thought that he could seriously injure his opponent, a figure flew from the side and blocked the golden sword talisman's attack. This figure was a loose cultivator's common attire. It should be one of the loose cultivators who went missing earlier. Looking at his aura, he should be at the second level of Qi disciple. The small golden sword hit the loose cultivator's chest. The metal attribute spiritual energy entered his body. He spat out a large mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. He could not be more dead. However, Wang Daoyuan was very surprised. This person looked like a living person, but why would a captured person risk his life to save the black-robed old man? The black-robed old man seized the opportunity and spat out a black smoke. Wang Daoyuan instantly came back to his senses. He threw out another golden sword talisman and used the smoke escape technique again, disappearing from his original position. The small golden sword hit the black smoke and made a zzz sound of corrosion. Then, there was the sound of metal colliding and the small golden sword disappeared. Although this attack did not succeed, it was enough to test the black-robed old man's strength. This guy's strength was probably at the late stage of Qi disciple. He was obviously not at the peak of Qi disciple. Other than controlling demonic beasts, he was not good at fighting alone. If there were no demonic beasts or loose cultivators to block the blade for him, Wang Daoyuan would not need the talisman. He could just use the profound yang sword to chop him alive. The black smoke that the black-robed old man spat out contained a metal-concealed weapon. It had already been repelled by the golden sword talisman. The black smoke mixed with the clouds and once again made a zzz sound of corrosion. A moment later, the sound of corrosion stopped and the black smoke disappeared without a trace. A large part of the clouds was also corroded. The black-robed old man had a pained expression. His black smoke was painstakingly cultivated. Wang Daoyuan did not care. The water spirit energy here was rich. Most of the clouds he used to use the smoke escape technique were formed from the external water spirit energy, so his consumption was very little. At this time, Wang Daoyuan had already figured out the black-robed old man's strength. He was not worried that he could not beat him. This guy was already so old and had not cultivated to the peak of Qi disciple. He was also not a very talented person. However, he could control demonic beasts and living people. He must have spent all his time in these aspects. His own ability was not very good. If this continued, Wang Daoyuan would definitely be the winner. However, what he wanted was not to defeat his opponent, but to kill him. If you don't kill the snake, you will cause harm to yourself. If the black-robed old man was allowed to escape, he would madly attack the various properties of the Wang family in the future. Then, the Wang family's mines and forests would not be able to be guarded. Wang Daoyuan did not use his true ability at this time, mainly because he was afraid of scaring the black-robed old man. If he directly started to scatter talismans, 3 golden sword talismans would be able to deal with the 3 demonic beasts. However, that would scare the black-robed old man into retreating. No one knew if there were other passages in the stone wall. If he scared the old man into escaping through other passages, there would be a lot of restrictions inside. Even if he used talismans, it would still take some time. By the time he broke the restrictions, the old man would have already run far away. At that time, Wang Daoyuan would not even be able to find a place to cry. The best way was to show weakness first and give the black-robed old man hope of victory. If he was unwilling to leave, then he would find an opportunity to sneak attack and kill him. Wang Daoyuan tangled with the three demonic beasts for a while. His profound yang sword was not considered sharp. Previously, he had spent a lot of effort fighting the giant python. These three demonic beasts were even more powerful. Without talismans, there was no chance of killing them. After fighting with the three demonic beasts for a while, he used the same trick again. He used smoke escape and instantly appeared beside the black-robed old man. Then, he threw out another golden sword talisman. However, the black-robed old man was already prepared. He took out a pitch-black shield and blocked the small golden sword. The sound of metal colliding rang out. Wang Daoyuan guessed that this was a metal attribute magic tool. Just as he was about to take out a fire attribute talisman, the black-robed old man spat out another cloud of black smoke. Wang Daoyuan blocked it with his sword. The black-robed old man sneered, as if victory was already in his grasp. With a crisp ding sound, a pitch-black needle-like magic tool hit the profound yang sword and was bounced away. The black smoke also followed suit, enveloping the profound yang sword. Wang Daoyuan drew a sword flower, dispersing the black smoke that was attached to the sword. Once again, he used smoke escape to escape. When Wang Daoyuan appeared, the black-robed old man was stunned. The profound yang sword that he expected to be corroded beyond recognition was actually intact. Wang Daoyuan was not surprised at all. When he first bought the profound yang sword, Zhao Liang, that profiteer, had bragged about the profound yang sword's unafraid of corrosion. Even if the profound yang sword was crippled, there was nothing to pity. His main strength was talismans, followed by smoke escape and water dragon technique. The profound yang sword was nothing. It seemed that the black-robed old man felt that his profound yang sword was very important, so he used it as bait to lure him out. However, his shield was also very troublesome. The golden sword talisman had no practical effect on it. He still had to find a fire attribute attack talisman to cripple the shield. Chapter 69. Wang Daoyuan continued to use the sneak attack strategy. After fighting with the three monsters for a while, he used the cloud escape to attack the black-robed old man. However, he no longer used the golden sword talisman. Instead, he used the fire arrow talisman, fire python talisman and other fire attribute talismans. He didn't expect to be effective in one blow. He just wanted to completely destroy the old man's shield. Among the 5 elements, fire suppressed metal. In terms of consumption, using the fire attribute to consume metal was the fastest. After fighting for more than 10 rounds, it seemed that Wang Daoyuan was crazily using the escape technique, but in fact, the consumption of spiritual power was not much. The cloud escape consumed spiritual power mainly from the outside world's water spiritual power. He also used talismans to attack the black-robed old man. It only required a little spiritual power or divine sense to activate the talismans. If the outside world's water spiritual power was relatively thin, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual power would have been exhausted. Even so, after fighting with the giant python and then being besieged by the 3 monsters, plus using the water dragon technique, he consumed 60% of his spiritual power. The black-robed old man was not much better off. He was constantly activating the black shield, which consumed a lot of spirit energy. Furthermore, his shield had been smashed full of holes by Wang Daoyuan, some of which had almost penetrated the shield. Wang Daoyuan estimated that this shield could at most withstand the attack of 2 or 3 first-order high-grade fire attribute talismans. After that, it would be completely destroyed. However, he didn't dare to continue attacking. If he directly broke the shield and scared the black-robed old man, his opponent would run away. Wang Daoyuan wouldn't even have a place to cry. It was impossible to kill the opponent with a sneak attack, unless he used the last golden sword talisman. However, that was a life-saving thing. Unless the black-robed old man was determined to escape, he really didn't want to use it. Since he couldn't use force, he could only lure the black-robed old man out and kill him. Under normal circumstances, Wang Daoyuan used so many spells and had been wearing the water dragon armor. His spiritual power should be close to exhaustion. At this time, it was reasonable to escape. Determined to lure the enemy, Wang Daoyuan dodged the monster's attack and used the cloud escape again. As soon as Wang Daoyuan disappeared, the black-robed old man immediately activated his shield to defend. By the time Wang Daoyuan appeared, he realized that Wang Daoyuan had already escaped downstream along the underground river. In order to make his act more realistic, Wang Daoyuan put away the water dragon armor and stuffed an essence recovery pill and a spirit cleansing pill into his mouth to recover his spiritual power and divine sense. The black-robed old man finally believed that Wang Daoyuan really couldn't hold on any longer. He had been operating in this underground river for many years. If Wang Daoyuan escaped and brought the experts of the Wang family to clean up this place, he wouldn't be able to stop them. However, he did not want to give up this nest that he had spent so much effort on. Therefore, he could only try his best to keep Wang Daoyuan here. Wang Daoyuan used a divine movement talisman, his speed was very fast, and he was about to disappear from his line of sight. The black-robed old man didn't have time to weigh the pros and cons. He immediately went to the back of the crocodile and ordered the 3 monster beasts to chase after Wang Daoyuan. Although the 3 monster beasts' cultivation wasn't high, they were still aquatic monsters. Their speed in the underground river couldn't be underestimated. In order to lure the black-robed old man to chase after him, Wang Daoyuan didn't use the water escape talisman. Instead, he used the divine movement talisman, relying on his 2 legs to run. In the water, his speed was greatly limited, and the distance was shortened. Wang Daoyuan secretly drank some of the 30-year-old scarlet blood wine to recover his spiritual power. He didn't want to run out of spiritual power. It had to be said that this 30-year-old wine was really strong. It replenished spiritual power very quickly, and it didn't go to the head. After drinking a few cups, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual power was almost recovered. The black-robed old man chased closer and closer. When he was several feet away from Wang Daoyuan turned around and threw out 3 golden sword talismans. The 2 pythons' heads were directly pierced, and they frantically struggled on the ground. However, death was only a matter of time. The golden sword that shot towards the crocodile was blocked by the black-robed old man's shield. The black-robed old man was full of smiles, as if victory was already in his hands. This place was already more than 10 miles away from the black-robed old man's lair. At such a distance, even if Wang Daoyuan revealed his true ability, he wouldn't be able to escape. Wang Daoyuan simply stopped pretending and put away the profound yang sword. In any case, this sword wasn't very useful. It took him half a day to kill a mid-grade rank 1 monster beast. He took out 2 talismans, a golden armor talisman and an earth armor talisman. After activating them, his body was enveloped in 2 layers of armor. Then, he used the cloud escape and instantly appeared behind the black-robed old man, blocking his retreat. 3 fire arrow talismans were thrown out, transforming into 3 arrows made of flames, aiming straight at the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man once again used his shield to block. The shield didn't disappoint and blocked the 3 fire arrows. However, it also lost its spiritual power and was completely scrapped. Wang Daoyuan took out another golden sword talisman. The black-robed old man's movement technique didn't seem to be very good and couldn't dodge in time. In the end, the crocodile blocked the golden sword talisman for him. Wang Daoyuan was still a little confused. Whether it was a monster beast or a rogue cultivator from before, why would they risk their lives to save someone? However, with his previous experience, he didn't hesitate and threw out another golden sword talisman. The black-robed old man once again spat out a cloud of black smoke. Wang Daoyuan had experience. There were needle-type concealed weapons hidden in the black smoke. The black smoke was also corrosive. He immediately used the cloud escape and dodged far away. Wang Daoyuan dodged far away. The black-robed old man chanted an incantation and an ancient brass bell appeared between his eyebrows. Although this yellow bell looked very old and dim, the power it exuded was not to be underestimated. The moment the brass bell appeared, Wang Daoyuan felt a sense of danger, as if his life was in danger. He immediately used the water dragon technique and turned it into a water dragon armor. Then, he used the cloud escape to get away from the black-robed old man. As soon as he appeared, the brass bell let out a loud bell sound. Although the bell sound wasn't ear-piercing, it had the effect of directly attacking one's soul. When Wang Daoyuan heard the bell sound, he felt a splitting headache, as if someone had smashed his head with a big hammer. This bell sound was indeed too powerful. Just one bell sound was enough to make people faint. This was the result of the two of them being more than 30 meters apart. If they were closer, this sound would have directly injured his soul and he wouldn't have been able to stay awake. Although keeping a distance could reduce the damage caused by the bell sound, it also made it impossible for him to pose a threat to the black-robed old man. Wang Daoyuan had lived for 20 years, but this was the first time he had seen a magic weapon that used sound to attack. This kind of magic weapon was relatively rare and generally had the effect of attacking one's soul. In the family's ancient books, there was only a brief introduction to this kind of magic weapon. There was no way to break it. This was big trouble. Who would have thought that this guy hiding in an underground rat hole would have a magic weapon that could release sound waves? No one knew how to break it. At this point, he was no longer worried about his opponent escaping and coming back to take revenge on the Wang family. Instead, he was worried about whether he would be able to leave alive. The family only mentioned the existence of sound wave magic weapons. They didn't mention any advantages or disadvantages. Who knew how many times this black-robed old man could strike it? If this magic weapon wasn't strenuous, then after a few more strikes, Wang Daoyuan would undoubtedly die. Chapter 70. In a moment of desperation, Wang Daoyuan thought of the physics knowledge he had learned in his previous life. After all, he had received higher education. He had studied sound waves since junior high school, and he was still studying them when he was in university. He was not completely ignorant about sound waves. However, the laws of this world were different from those of his previous life. When he was young, he had tried to use the chemistry knowledge he had learned in his previous life to do something, but without exception, he had failed. For example, he once wanted to generate electricity to create thunder talismans. In the end, this world could not generate electricity at all. In this world of cultivation, the principles of matter seemed to be different from his previous world. Therefore, he wasn't sure if the knowledge he had learned in his previous life to weaken sound waves could be used in this world. However, at this time, there was no other way. He could only try everything he could. According to what he had learned in his previous life, the transmission of sound required a medium. For example, air and water. However, the transmission of sound across the medium would consume a lot of energy. The greater the difference in density between the two mediums, the more sound energy would be consumed. With less energy, the sound would naturally become softer. For example, if someone was riding a horse in the distance, so far that the sound of the horse could no longer be heard. The effect of sound traveling on the ground was better. If one's ear was on the ground, one could clearly hear the sound of horse hooves. However, if one's ear was off the ground, one would not be able to hear it. This was because sound traveled from the ground to the air. It was transmitted across a medium, and its energy was depleted. The sound was too soft for human ears to detect. As for the specific principles behind it, it had been several years since he graduated from university in his previous life. 20 years had passed in this life, so he had long forgotten all about it. However, knowing the principle was not important. What was important was knowing what to do. If he knew something like the earth wall technique, he would be able to condense spiritual energy and turn it into a solid object. Then, he would be able to create an earth ball to wrap himself up. Unfortunately, none of the talismans he refined were of this type. The armor condensed from the earth armor talisman, the gold armor talisman, and the water dragon armor were all in the form of spiritual energy, not solid. The only non-gaseous thing he could condense was a water ball. Wang Daoyuan made up his mind to take a gamble. If he could weaken the sound wave attack, then he would kill this old bastard. If it didn't work, then he would immediately use a mid-grade tier 2 divine strider talisman to escape. Circulating his water spiritual energy, he controlled the water in the underground river to form a water ball. This layer of water ball didn't wrap around his body tightly, and there were some gaps between it and his body. He was still worried about a single layer of water ball, so he condensed an even bigger water ball and wrapped it around the outside. Between the two layers of water balls, there was a half-foot gap, which was filled with water spiritual energy. The sound of the bell had to pass through the air and travel to the outer layer of the water sphere. Then, it would travel from the outer layer of the water sphere to the space between the two layers of water spheres. Then, it would travel to the inner layer of water sphere. Finally, it would travel to the air between the human and the inner layer of water sphere. Only then could he hear it. If this principle worked, then after 4 consecutive transmediums, the sound of the bell wouldn't even sound like a fart. Not only did Wang Daoyuan not retreat, he even took a few steps forward, as if he was about to attack. The black-robed old man controlled the yellow bell to ring again. As a precaution, Wang Daoyuan still took a few big steps back to avoid being severely injured by the sound wave if this principle was ineffective. He would not even have the chance to escape. The two of them were only a few dozen feet apart, and the sound of the bell arrived in an instant. The outer layer of the water sphere was shaken by the sound of the bell. The entire water sphere seemed to be boiling, but the inner layer of the water sphere only had small ripples. When the sound reached Wang Daoyuan's ears, it was like listening to the sound of a bell dozens of miles away. If he did not listen carefully, he would not be able to hear it at all. If this principle worked, Wang Daoyuan was especially happy. As expected, it didn't sound like a fart. "Old man, just wait for me to chop you up." The black-robed old man saw that Wang Daoyuan was not affected by the sound of the bell at all, and was somewhat in disbelief. He activated the yellow bell a few more times, but it still did not have any effect. On the contrary, he was the one who activated the magic tool consecutively in a short period of time. His body was affected by the recoil, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. After a few breaths, Wang Daoyuan was already in front of him. The black-robed old man asked in horror, "How can you not be affected by the sound of the bell?" Wang Daoyuan did not reply, and directly used the water dragon technique. A water dragon appeared and wrapped around the yellow bell. The water dragon flew towards him with the yellow bell. He took the yellow bell and directly sent it into the space of the spiritual pearl. Even if the black-robed old man had a connection with the magic tool, they were separated by space. No matter how capable he was, he would not be able to sense the yellow bell, let alone activate it. After removing the greatest threat, Wang Daoyuan dispersed the 2 layers of water balls. The water dragon technique once again turned into the water dragon armor. Coupled with the golden armor talisman and the earth armor talisman, he was not afraid that this injured old man could do anything to him. He knew very well that villains died from talking too much. Although he was now a righteous person, he still had to be steady and send this old man to the afterlife first. He took out the profound Yang sword, and without saying a word, he slashed down. It was unknown if the black-robed old man was injured or something, but his movement technique was terrifyingly weak. He was actually unable to dodge this simple sword strike, and only had time to move his head away. This sword strike landed on his left shoulder. Although the profound Yang sword was not very sharp, it still depended on who it was cutting. It was almost enough to cut a python or a crocodile with a thick skin and a thick body of scales, but cutting this old man was like playing with a toy. With one strike, the black-robed old man's entire body was almost split into two halves. He did not even struggle before he died. Wang Daoyuan did not choose to search on the spot. He had good things on him, and after killing the enemy, he would plunder them on the spot. It was too easy to be plotted against. The defensive talisman and the water dragon armor were still on him. He lifted the black-robed old man's corpse, wanting to take away his storage belt. Suddenly, a spirit beast bag on the black-robed old man's waist opened by itself, and a young rogue cultivator ran out. Wang Daoyuan grabbed him and asked, "Who are you? Why are you here?" Without saying a word, the rogue cultivator turned around and threw out a hidden weapon. Then, he turned around and fled. This hidden weapon was the needle-shaped magic tool that was hidden in the black smoke when the black-robed old man spat out black smoke. When the needle hit Wang Daoyuan's earth armor talisman, the earth armor talisman only trembled slightly. This power was far inferior to the one the black-robed old man used. Wang Daoyuan was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He directly chased after him and struck the rogue cultivator on the back of his neck. The rogue cultivator immediately fainted. After all, he was only a guy at the second level of chi refinement. If he wanted to play tricks in his hands, he could dream on. At this moment, the black-robed old man's corpse was still in his hands. Wang Daoyuan directly opened the 3 spirit beast bags on the corpse, and after making sure that there were no people or monstrous beasts hiding inside, he put the 3 monstrous beasts inside, and together with the storage bags, he put them into the spirit pearl space. Then, he put the black-robed old man's corpse into a storage bag and hung it on his belt. The yellow bell was still in the space of the spirit pearl. Without knowing if this old man had a backup plan, he directly threw the corpse into the space of the spirit pearl. It was hard to guarantee that this old man would not leave behind a backup plan. In case another rogue cultivator popped out from somewhere and directly controlled the yellow bell, when Wang Daoyuan's divine sense entered the space, it would attack him. When one's divine sense entered and was attacked by the yellow bell, it might implicate one's soul. It was better to be safe than sorry. Even if victory was in his hands, he had to be steady. It didn't matter if it was a little troublesome, but if he was careless and was plotted against, he would really die with regrets. Chapter 71. From the moment Wang Daoyuan was ambushed to the moment he finished off the black-robed old man, it had only taken him 4 hours. It wasn't even midnight yet, so he decided to explore the black-robed old man's cave residence first and return to Mirror Iron Mountain at dawn. When he was thrown to the stone wall by the python, he quickly scanned the place with his spiritual sense and found that there were many restrictions inside. There should be many good things inside. However, he didn't dare to enter rashly. This old man had too many tricks up his sleeve. If he fell to the old man's tricks, it would be a great loss. Wang Daoyuan couldn't understand how the black-robed old man could make wandering cultivators and demon beasts willingly die for him. However, the black-robed old man was crafty, so Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to keep him alive. It wasn't worth risking his life for curiosity. Fortunately, there was a wandering cultivator with a low cultivation. He had 2 layers of defensive talismans and the water dragon armor, so there was no need to fear a backlash. In order to prevent this person from resisting, he could only tie him up and stick a high-grade grade 1 truth-questioning talisman on him. The truth-questioning talisman could suppress the user's soul and make them lose their ability to think. They would answer whatever others asked. Wang Daoyuan activated the truth-questioning talisman and slapped him in the face, waking him up. Unless the power of this individual cultivator's spiritual sense had reached the level of foundation establishment, otherwise, he would definitely answer any question asked by the questioning inner heart talisman. Wang Daoyuan asked, "What's your name? Where are you from? What's your purpose in coming to Mirror Iron Mountain?" The wandering cultivator answered, "My name is Qi Yun. I come from the north of Huiyan mountain range, where humans and demons live together. Because I explored a secret realm left behind by a predecessor, I obtained an inherited cultivation method and had a conflict with my companions. After being ambushed, I was heavily injured. My soul was also damaged, and my cultivation constantly fell. I could only escape to the south of Huiyan mountain range to avoid being hunted down. 10 years ago, I coincidentally came to Mirror Iron Mountain. Because of my heavy injuries, I have been recuperating here. I only recently stabilized my injuries. My body is damaged and it's difficult to recover. I want to find a suitable wandering cultivator to possess." Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised when he heard the rogue cultivator's words. This person looked to be in his 20s, not much older than him. Why would he call himself old man and say that he wanted to possess Wang Daoyuan's body? That was impossible. Even the soul of a foundation establishment cultivator couldn't possess another person's body. Only after reaching the Violet Palace stage and establishing the Violet Palace would one's soul be strengthened into a divine soul. Only then would it be able to exist for a long period of time outside of the body. Only a god soul had the ability to forcefully enter another's sea of consciousness and carry out possession. Could this old man be a Violet Realm expert? That was impossible. No matter how heavily injured a Violet Palace Realm expert was, his soul had already undergone a qualitative change, and it was absolutely impossible for him to be restrained by a first-grade interrogation talisman. Cheese bodies souls body body, cheese a person, he's a body s's. Qi Yun replied, "Before I was injured, I was at the peak of foundation establishment. I relied on the inheritance I obtained while exploring a secret realm. There was a divine sense cultivation method that recorded the secret method to possess someone below the Violet Palace realm. Mans to S to the point to S's, S truths, or he, S soul. Although the soul of a peak foundation establishment cultivator was extremely powerful, very close to the soul of a Violet Palace cultivator, no matter how powerful it was, it still hadn't undergone a qualitative change. In essence, it was the same as a Qi condensation cultivator's soul. It was possible for it to fall to the level of a Qi condensation cultivator if it was severely damaged. What followed was a burst of ecstasy. A divine sense cultivation method that could cause peak foundation establishment cultivators to fight over. What kind of level was that? At the very least, it was much stronger than the Wang clan's soul tempering art. Wang Daoyuan continued to ask, "Where's your soul tempering art? What other treasures do you have?" Qi Yun replied in a daze, "The soul tempering arts are in my Immortal's cave. Apart from the soul tempering arts, I also obtained a few magic tools. However, I was chased away by them, leaving behind only a high-grade Tier 2 brass bell and a high-grade Tier 1 shield." Wang Daoyuan's interest was piqued. He only felt that the brass bell was very powerful and might be a Tier 2 magic tool. He didn't expect it to be a high-grade Tier 2 magic tool. Even though it was especially strenuous for him to utilize a level 2 magic weapon with his cultivation and divine sense, and it might even injure his soul instead, it was still not bad to use as a trump card. Furthermore, this yellow bell was a sound wave attack. It was possible that it could catch an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator off guard and severely injure them. Wang Daoyuan continued to ask, "There are restrictions in your cave residence. How do I get in?" Qi Yun replied, "I have a bead in my storage pouch. It's the hub that controls the formation in the cave. As long as you refine it, you'll be able to control the formation in the entire cave." Wang Daoyuan was in a hurry to go to Qi Yun's cave to look for a cultivation technique, so he was too lazy to ask any more questions. He threw away the questioning heart talisman and stuck a soul-subduing talisman on Qi Yun's body. This talisman would keep him unconscious for 10 days to half a month before he placed Qi Yun into his spirit beast pouch. He took out the storage pouch that he had just seized from the spirit beast pouch. Sure enough, there was a fist-sized blue bead inside. There were also a few jade slips, but he didn't have the time to look at them. Wang Daoyuan dripped a drop of blood essence onto the bead. He then used his divine sense to explore the interior of the bead and forcefully erased the divine sense imprint that Qi Yun had left on the bead. He then used his divine sense to leave his own divine sense imprint on the bead. The process was complete. If the magic weapon wasn't in the hands of its owner, the divine sense imprint was like water without a source. The more it was consumed, the less it would be. After successfully making the magic weapon recognize him as its owner, Wang Daoyuan quickly rushed to Qi Yun's cave residence. He used his divine sense to explore the interior of the cave residence. He found that the interior space was very large. It seemed to be built using a natural karst cave. He used his magic power and divine sense to activate the blue bead at the same time. The bead emitted a blue light. Wang Daoyuan thought to himself. The formations and restrictions in the cave residence were all closed. In an instant, the restrictions became dim. Wang Daoyuan calmly walked in. He saw that the interior of the cave residence was very large. It occupied an area of more than 50 mu. There were a few luminous pearls hanging above the cave residence. Although these were worthless things for cultivators, they were really good for lighting. In the deepest part of the cave residence, there was a spirit spring. Based on the concentration of spiritual energy it emitted, he could determine that it was a low-grade second-rank spirit spring. The spirit spring was an undeveloped water spirit vein. But apart from its small size, the concentration of spiritual energy around the spirit spring was about the same as water spirit veins of the same rank. Of course, the amount of spiritual energy produced by the spirit spring was much less. The amount of spiritual energy produced by this spirit spring was enough for an early Foundation establishment cultivator and 20 to 30 Qi refining cultivators to cultivate. This cave residence could be used as the foundation of a Foundation establishment clan. However, in Wang Daoyuan's eyes, it wasn't particularly precious. After all, the Jade Spring Peak was the clan's foundation chosen by the old ancestor. It had a mid-grade 4th-rank spirit vein. Moreover, the Jade Spring Peak spirit vein was a mid-grade spirit vein. Just the spirit eye of the spirit vein, the Jade Dragon Spring, was half a mu in size. The Wang clan's protective formation, the Myriad Water Origin Formation, used the spirit vein as its source of energy. When the Wang clan was involved in the battle of the 3 great sects to destroy the Zhao clan, several golden core cultivators of the 3 great sects attacked for several days without being able to break the formation. Later, under Yang Yong's mediation, the Netherworld sect made concessions and promised not to destroy the Wang clan. The Wang clan submitted to the Netherworld sect. However, the Netherworld sect didn't want their subordinate forces to have such a powerful formation. Thus, they destroyed the Myriad Water Origin Formation. Although the Wang clan still kept the diagram of the Myriad Water Origin Formation and the method to set it up, without a 4th-rank formation master, there was no way to set it up. Moreover, the Netherworld sect wouldn't allow the Wang clan to set up the Myriad Water Origin Formation again. In addition, the Netherworld sect also extracted the spirit vein's source from the Jade Spring Peak, causing the spirit vein to fall to the 3rd rank high grade, making it unable to support Violet Palace realm cultivators to break through to the Golden Core stage. It also wasn't enough to support the Myriad Water Origin formation. Even so, the Jade Spring Peak's spirit vein was still second to none in Clear Glass County. The main spirit veins of the Yang clan and the Liang clan were only 3rd rank low grade, and the main spirit vein of the Old Square in Clear Glass City was only 3rd rank middle grade. Moreover, in the future, by extracting the source of other spirit veins and fusing it with the Jade Dragon Spring, there was a possibility that it could recover to a 4th rank spirit vein. The spirit chi of the Jade Dragon Spring was enough for more than 10 late-stage Violet Palace realm cultivators to cultivate. In the past, it was enough to satisfy the cultivation of several middle-stage Golden Core cultivators. Although this spirit spring couldn't be compared to the spirit vein of the Jade Spring Peak, it wasn't completely useless. The spirit spring was an immature spirit vein and had a very high potential for growth. This place wasn't far from the Heaven/Mountain range, and the spirit chi was abundant. In the future, it would have a chance to grow into a spirit vein. The spirit spring water meandered in the cave, nourishing 5 to 6 mu of spirit fields. The fields were all spirit grains. There were many types of spirit grains. The commonly seen spirit grains in the market were similar to millet. The spirit grains in Wang Daoyuan's spirit pearl were also of this type. In addition, there were also grains similar to wheat and rice, respectively called spirit wheat and spirit rice. These 3 types of spirit grains all had different grades. In some large powers, there were also some 2nd-rank spirit grains. In the past, the imperial family of the state of Zhao even had 3rd-rank spirit grains. In this cave, all 3 types of spirit grains were planted. The low-lying areas were planted with spirit rice, while the higher areas were planted with spirit wheat and spirit grains. Spirit wheat and spirit rice were rarely seen in the market, and there were also very few people who planted them. Although the production of these 2 types of spirit grains was slightly higher, the requirements for the spirit fields were high. Moreover, the management of the fields was more troublesome. Especially spirit rice. Among the 3 types of spirit grains, its production was the highest, but its management was also the most troublesome. The requirements for the growing environment were also the highest. Not only did it require spirit fields, it also needed spirit spring water to water it. In addition, it also needed to frequently draw and drain water. The spring water finally converged at a low-lying area, forming a pool of about 3 mu. The pool water was cold and clear. There were some 1st-rank seaweeds in the pool. They looked similar to mortal goldfish algae and shone with a metallic light. Wang Daoyuan scooped up a strand of seaweed and carefully observed it, but he didn't find anything special. It should be an ordinary goldfish algae that had become a 1st-rank spirit grass under the nourishment of spirit energy. He might as well call it goldfish spirit grass. This seaweed didn't have any medicinal value, but it was full of spirit energy and was good as food for spirit fish. The Wang family's Jade Dragon Spring also had ranked seaweed, and it was a 2nd-rank upper-grade seaweed called Jade Dragon Seaweed. It was a special product of the Jade Dragon Spring and couldn't grow in other places. Jade Dragon Seaweed could grow into a 3rd-rank lower-grade spirit plant if it grew for a long time. It could help aquatic demon beasts advance. Legend had it that the dragon fish of the Wang family's ancestor was originally an ordinary 2nd-rank spirit fish. Later, after eating the 3rd-rank Jade Dragon Seaweed, it broke the bloodline shackles and rose to 3rd rank. Moreover, the dragon bloodline in its body, which was already extremely thin, was awakened. Its talent soared and quickly rose to 4th rank. If it hadn't died in the war more than 300 years ago, it was not impossible for a dignified dragon species to become a 5th-rank spirit beast. Because the Jade Dragon Seaweed had such a valuable effect, the family's management of the jade dragon seaweed was extremely strict. Except for the patriarch and the grand elder, no one was allowed to touch it. Moreover, the jade dragon seaweed grew at the bottom of the jade dragon spring. Cultivators below the foundation establishment stage couldn't go down at all. Wang Daoyuan had always wanted to steal a few, but unfortunately, he didn't have the ability. If the jade dragon seaweed left the jade dragon spring, the possibility of survival was not high. Even if it was lucky enough to survive, it wouldn't grow well. Moreover, the spiritual field in the spiritual pearl space at this time barely reached second rank lower grade, and the spirit energy concentration was only first rank upper grade. Although the spiritual pearl space was magical and couldn't be taken lightly, the hope of growing a rare spirit plant like the jade dragon seaweed was still not high. There were many pseudo-spirit fish in the pool, but they were all common species and not ranked. Wang Daoyuan scooped out about half of the goldfish spirit grass and pseudo-spirit fish in the pool and put them into the fish pond in the spiritual pearl space. With these goldfish spirit grass, the Qing River carps and pseudo-spirit fish didn't need to be fed by humans. On both sides of the spring, there were about 100 or 200 first-rank upper-grade orchids. It was a species that Wang Daoyuan had never seen or heard of. It should be a special species bred by this spiritual spring. The leaves of this orchid were more than a foot long, like a long sword. There were quite a lot of similar orchids, so it wasn't rare. However, this flower was quite strange. The flower shape was like a butterfly, the color was like white jade, and it also shone with a faint blue light. When he walked closer, he could smell a delicate fragrance, which made him 100 times more energetic. This flower fragrance should have the effect of waking up and even improving the cultivation of spiritual awareness. He moved more than 20 orchids into the spiritual pearl space and planted them on the edge of the fish pond. This thing may have the effect of improving spiritual awareness, so naturally, he had to plant a lot. In addition, since he found such an immortal's cave, he naturally had to go back to report his results to the patriarch and bring some evidence back. There was a simple thatched hut next to the spiritual spring, which should be where Qiyun lived. The ground in the immortal's cave was uneven, and there were many large and small rocks. The only flat ground was the 5 or 6 mu of spiritual fields and the thatched hut. If he cleaned it up, he could use the spiritual spring water to open up more than 10 mu of spiritual fields. If he raised some spiritual fish and aquatic spiritual plants in the pond, this immortal's cave could support an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator and 30 to 40 qi refinement cultivators. No matter how one looked at it, it was enough to support a foundation establishment clan. Moreover, this place was extremely hidden, and could be used as a secret base for the Wang clan. In the future, if the Wang clan was in trouble, it could also be used as a refuge, and the clan's good seedlings could be brought here to take refuge. It wouldn't affect their cultivation, and they could regroup after the storm passed. Wang Daoyuan didn't expect that he would have completed more than half of the unlimited mission just as he started. The reason why he said it was more than half was because although this place could shelter most of the clan's cultivators and ensure that the inheritance would not be lost, it still belonged to the Netherworld sect. However, this place was still within the territory of the Netherworld sect. If the clan needed to take refuge here in the future, dozens of people would inevitably leave traces behind. If they were discovered, the Netherworld sect would clear this place, and they would die. It was still possible to hide a few clansmen, but it was not reliable to send all of them. Wang Daoyuan still needed to continue to the periphery of the heavenly/mountain range to find a safe place for the clan to live. Chapter 72. Wang Daoyuan walked into the hut. The furnishings inside were very simple. There was only a bed and a table. There was an animal skin book on the table. It was the same as the 10,000 Spirit Atlas that he had seized from Zhang Desheng. Each animal skin was equivalent to a jade slip. He could use his divine sense to imprint information on it. It was much more advanced than a jade slip. He put the animal skin book into the spiritual pearl space and used a trace of his divine sense to explore it. In this way, even if there was a trick in the animal skin book, it would at most destroy a trace of his divine sense. It would not directly hurt his soul. When he used his divine sense to explore the animal skin book, he saw the words, Doppelganger Soul Nurturing Technique, written on the first page. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to explore the second page. This page was the origin of the technique and the modification process. From the records, it could be seen that this divine sense cultivation technique was not something from Beiyuan Xiaofan. It came from another immortal cultivation world. Moreover, it was not the original version. It was modified after a later generation. Even the name of the original creator was not left behind. According to the records, the original creator's soul was damaged. He had no hope of opening the purple mansion in this life. He wanted to repair his soul, but it was difficult to find such a miraculous elixir. He collected many ancient books and techniques related to the soul. In the end, he created a secret technique that could repair the soul, the devouring soul nurturing technique. This secret technique erased other people's spiritual wisdom and will, causing their soul to be in an extremely weak state. The caster divided his own soul and injected the divided part into the victim's sea of consciousness. Because the victim's soul did not have spiritual wisdom and consciousness, it was unable to resist the invasion of the foreign soul. Moreover, the control of the body would be taken away. At this time, the victim became an existence similar to the caster's doppelganger. The caster used the victim's body and soul to nourish the divided soul. When the divided soul was strong to a certain extent, it would devour the original soul of the doppelganger. The caster then took back the divided soul and merged it into himself. In this way, not only could the soul be healed, but it could also greatly improve the cultivation of the divine sense. After many times, the creator finally repaired the damage to his soul and successfully opened the purple mansion. However, after the creator's soul recovered, he was unwilling to give up this secret technique. He used this method to strengthen the cultivation of the divine sense. Finally, he cultivated to the Yuanying state. Later on, the matter was exposed and the founder was attacked by the righteous cultivators. In the end, he died. However, the spirit-devouring soul cultivation technique was not lost because of this. Instead, it was obtained by an expert who besieged the founder. This expert had a good character and did not use it to harm others. Instead, he used it as a foundation and improved it, renaming it the soul-nurturing doppelganger technique. Although the improved secret technique also split the soul and used the clone to nurture the soul, the clone did not have to be a human. Any spiritual creature with a soul would do. The split soul would only rely on the clone to grow stronger. It would not devour the soul of the clone. The soul of the clone could still be reincarnated. Therefore, this secret technique was no longer in the category of evil cultivation methods. It could be considered a divine sense cultivation method that could repair the damage to the soul. Furthermore, the doppelganger soul nurturing technique had improved the method of erasing the doppelganger's intelligence and consciousness, making the doppelganger's soul more stable. Even without a split soul, the doppelganger's intelligence would only be that of an infant, and it would still be able to survive. The same doppelganger could be used repeatedly. If the original split soul was strong enough, a new split soul could be used to replace the strong split soul. This secret technique could split the soul and fuse it again. It could be used together with the puppet technique, beast taming technique, and corpse refining technique. That expert's descendant also used this secret technique as a foundation to establish the imperial regency. The imperial regency dominated the cultivation world with the puppet technique, beast taming technique, and corpse refining technique, suppressing all the other forces. However, the hunter would shoot the bird that sticks out. The imperial regency was besieged by all the major forces. In the end, it was exterminated, and its disciples fled in all directions. One of the Foundation establishment disciples fled to the remote Beiyuan Xiaofan. However, this disciple's status was not high. He was only qualified to cultivate the doppelganger soul nurturing technique after he reached the Foundation establishment realm. Furthermore, before he could achieve anything with his cultivation, he was caught up in the destruction of his sect. He was not qualified to obtain the secret technique manual. He could only try to restore the doppelganger soul nurturing technique based on what he had learned and the rumors about the technique. Unfortunately, his cultivation was too low, and he had learned too little. It was difficult for him to restore his original appearance. Although the doppelganger soul nurturing technique that he restored could still increase the cultivation of his divine sense, it no longer had the effect of repairing damaged souls. Although his cultivation had increased and he had deduced the contents of the Purple Palace realm, his knowledge was still too lacking compared to the senior who had modified the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. The difference between the repaired version and the complete version was like heaven and earth. Although the clone refined from the repaired version could continue to cultivate and increase the cultivation of the divine sense, the split soul could not perfectly fuse with the original soul of the clone. The clone's cultivation would increase very slowly, and its ability to cultivate techniques and learn the various arts of cultivation would be greatly reduced. It would be easier to encounter bottlenecks, and it would be extremely difficult to break through the bottleneck. Due to the incomplete soul, the clone could not establish a Purple Palace. If one wanted to obtain a Purple Palace realm clone, they would have to deal with a Purple Palace realm cultivator. However, the soul of a Purple Palace realm cultivator had already undergone a qualitative change, becoming a divine soul. Using the original divine sense attack secret technique to deal with a Purple Palace realm cultivator would not have a high success rate. Either they were unable to completely annihilate the clone's consciousness, or they used too much strength and directly killed the clone. If they were unable to completely annihilate the clone's consciousness, then when the split soul fused with the clone, it would be easy to cause the soul of the clone to resist, causing the split soul to be directly annihilated and cause permanent damage to the soul. Although spirit medicines that repaired the damage of the soul were rare, they weren't difficult to find for some great powers. On the other hand, spirit medicines that repaired the soul of a Purple Palace realm cultivator were especially rare, and all of them were rare treasures that could only be chanced upon by luck. The risk of using a Purple Palace realm cultivator to refine a clone was truly too great. Thus, this disciple started to take an unconventional path. He no longer pursued strengthening the cultivation of his divine sense, and instead used his clone as his main method of combat. He mainly cultivated corpse refinement techniques and used his split soul to control the corpse refinement. The human and the corpse refinement were of one mind, and their cooperation was seamless. Coupled with the assistance of formations, their combat strength rose sharply, and they could be said to be invincible amongst their peers. Later on, he broke through to the Golden Core realm, controlled over 100 refined corpses, and created the Myriad Corpse Grand Formation, causing him to become illustrious amongst Golden Core realm cultivators and obtain the title of Myriad Corpse Daoist. When Myriad Corpse Daoist's cultivation reached the late Golden Core realm, there was no one below Yuanying who was a match for him. Later on, because he offended too many powers, he was besieged and seriously injured by dozens of Golden Core realm cultivators. After escaping, he hid in a secret realm and finally passed away. When Qi Yun and the others explored the secret realm, they accidentally found the place where Myriad Corpse Daoist passed away. The majority of the refined corpses, magic tools, and secret manuals left behind by Myriad Corpse Daoist were obtained by their companions. He only obtained a small portion of the magic tools, as well as Myriad Corpse Daoist's main cultivation technique and some secret techniques, which led to the subsequent events. The third page of the Beast Book recorded the main text of the doppelganger soul nurturing technique, which included the method of using one's divine sense to destroy the consciousness and consciousness of the clone, the secret technique to fuse the main soul with the split soul, and the method to nurture the split soul and the main soul. There were a few more pages at the back of the Beast book that recorded the secret techniques derived from the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. For example, Qi Yun's foundation establishment secret technique was to first transfer a split soul into the main body of the clone. After the split soul and the clone adapted to each other, the main soul would be transferred into the clone and replace the original soul of the clone. However, the process of Qi Yun's main soul being transferred into the clone was completed by force. Since his main body was killed, he could only entrust his main soul into the clone before the clone and the split soul could fully adapt. The rogue cultivator and the 4 monster beasts from before were all Qi Yun's clones, so they were able to sacrifice their lives to block the blade for their main body. In addition to the secret techniques derived from the doppelganger soul nurturing technique, there were also some corpse cultivation techniques and secret techniques collected by Myriad Corpse Daoist, including the Myriad Corpse Grand Array. Wang Daoyuan wasn't interested in refining corpses. In his previous life, he had been influenced by the old Daoist priest and was greatly influenced by traditional culture. Traditional culture emphasized that the dead were the most important. No matter how great a crime was, death was atonement. Even if one wanted to take revenge and even exterminate the enemy's entire clan, they would only do so against the living. There was still a minimum of respect for corpses. Therefore, he couldn't accept things like refining corpses. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.